Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. Get ready for heart-pounding action, thrilling adventures with fresh and unique elements, a touch of romance, and a dash of harem. Everything you're craving is right here. We're excited to have you join us on this journey. So come along to Novel Love Hearing, we're waiting for you. As a small favor, please consider sharing Novel Love Hearing with your friends, family, in YouTube comments, on Discord, Reddit, or anywhere else you hang out online. Happy listening, and enjoy the ride. It could be fatal. But facing Shinichi now, the thought of attacking again didn't even cross her mind. Noticing her hesitation, Shinichi slightly reined in his killing intent. The combination of his sheer aura and the Mangekyo Sharingan's influence was enough to trigger an illusion like fear in most opponents. "You're not completely foolish," he remarked. "This isn't a fight you can win." He stepped forward, lifting Pakura's chin lightly with two fingers. His gaze roamed over her delicate features before he murmured, "Take care of Karura. You have no right to interfere in what I do." He found Pakura intriguing. Despite growing up in the harsh desert environment of Hidden Sand Village, she was still soft, still pink and pretty, an oddity in the brutal shinobi world. Her skin was smooth, untouched by the harsh sun, and her Kekkei Genkai was no small matter either. Thinking of what fate might await her in the future, Shinichi smirked. "If you ever find yourself out of options, maybe try calling my name." Pakura's brows furrowed in confusion at his cryptic words, but before she could respond, Shinichi turned his attention back to Karura. "I'm leaving for now, Karura. We'll meet again, if fate allows." With that, he vanished in a blur, using the body flicker jutsu to disappear instantly. For several minutes after he was gone, Pakura remained frozen before finally collapsing to the ground, gasping for breath. Karura, who had been silent the entire time, could understand why she was shaken. After all, she had personally witnessed Shinichi suppress Shukaku. She knew better than anyone what kind of monster Pakura had just faced. "Pakura, calm down. Lord Shinichi didn't harm you." Jailo, Karura's attendant, spoke gently, helping Pakura to her feet. Pakura swayed, still dazed, her mind a chaotic mess. But when she registered Jailo's words, she froze. "Shinichi. That was Shinichi." Her gaze snapped to Karura, bewildered. "Karura, how do you know him? Did he hurt you?" A flood of questions filled her mind as she stared at Karura, who now had a faint blush dusting her cheeks. After Pakura finally managed to regain her composure, Karura hesitated before explaining everything that had just happened. Meanwhile, Shinichi had already arrived at another part of the village, the chambers where Hidden Sand Village's high-ranking officials operated. Inside a dimly lit office, a middle-aged man in his 40s was seated at a desk, engrossed in paperwork. Shinichi's shadow clone had already scouted ahead. He knew this man was a key figure in Hidden Sand Village, one of the few Kage-level shinobi in the village, a senior member of the Elders Advisory Council. Finally found the right target. Wood-style, silent binding. Clasping his hands together, Shinichi activated his jutsu. Instantly, wooden tendrils erupted from beneath the chair, wrapping around the Sand Elder in an instant. The man barely had a second to react before the wooden restraints coiled tightly around his limbs, pinning him in place. His chakra flared as he attempted to fight back, but then their eyes met. Mangekyo Sharingan, illusion jutsu. The moment he gazed into Shinichi's spinning Sharingan, the elder's will crumbled. His pupils dilated, his mind falling into a hypnotic trance. Where is the third Kage? How are those clay puppets created? Standing before the entranced elder, Shinichi spoke coldly. Hidden Sand Village had probably never expected that even their high-ranking officials could be so easily compromised. The third Kage went to Uran. He seeks to control the power of the dragon vein. The clay puppets are infused with the chakra extracted from the dragon vein beneath Uran. Hearing this, Shinichi inhaled deeply. So it really was connected to the dragon vein. His eyes darkened. This changed everything. With the elder completely under his control, Shinichi pressed further, extracting every piece of information he could about the secretive dragon vein project. What he uncovered only confirmed his suspicions. Hidden Sand Village was playing with a power they didn't fully understand. And that meant an opportunity for him. Chapter 69. Could my presence have altered the future time loop, causing these events to fall out of alignment? Has this led the Sand Village to encounter the ancient kingdom of Uran at this moment? Shinichi muttered to himself, but he knew there was no time to dwell on it. The situation was already spiraling out of control. The third Kage had led an elite squad of sand shinobi toward Uran. If they gained complete control over the dragon vein, there was no telling what kind of catastrophe could unfold. Wasting no time, he demanded the high-ranking sand shinobi to reveal the fastest route to Uran. Then, without hesitation, he departed from the Sand Village, giving only a brief explanation to Mikoto and Kanako. The three of them raced toward their destination at top speed. In the endless desert, a towering kingdom of skyscrapers now stood, a shocking sight in the middle of nowhere. The Sand Shinobi, led by the third Kazekage, had already arrived at the gates of this thriving city. Gazing upon the high-rise buildings and the overwhelming prosperity before him, ambition flickered in the third Kazekage's eyes. In just a few years, Uran had flourished into a beacon of progress and modernization, fueled entirely by the Dragon Vein's energy fused with advanced puppetry. This time, I will bring this prosperity back to the Sand Village. The third Kazekage's words were quiet but resolute. Until now, the Sand Village and the Uran Kingdom had maintained a cooperative relationship. Only the royal family of Uran possessed the ability to control the Dragon Vein, so the initial dealings between the two sides had been diplomatic. Through careful negotiations and gradual trust building, the Sand Village had managed to gain partial access to the Dragon Vein's power. However, the Uran royal family had always been wary. Once they learned that the Sand Village was using the Dragon Vein's energy for warfare, they immediately sought to sever ties. The third Kazekage refused to allow this. He ordered the assassination of the entire royal family, leaving only one survivor, a 16-year-old girl, Sasha, the last direct descendant of the Uran lineage. To him, this was a necessary evil. Ordinarily, Genjutsu would have sufficed to control the royal family. However, when tapping into the Dragon Vein's power, its users would experience a natural awakening, rendering Genjutsu ineffective. A previous failure had nearly destroyed their puppet production line. Even the one-tails Jinchuriki, Bunpaku, whom they had brought for experimentation, had perished during the process. Having learned from that disaster, the third Kazekage would not take any further risks. Instead, he planned to manipulate the naive Sasha into opening the Dragon Vein completely, granting the Sand Village full control over its power. Upon entering the Uran Palace, the third Kazekage found it eerily empty. He immediately summoned his station Sand Shinobi. "Where is the last remaining royal? Where's Sasha?" His voice was sharp, laced with authority. He had given strict orders for her to be kept under watch at all times. One of his Anbu operatives stepped forward. "Lord Kazekage, she has gone to the ruins of the old Uran courtyard, saying she wished to be alone. Ever since the extermination of the royal family, she frequently visits that place. However, we have to Anbu-tailing her. They can retrieve her at a moment's notice." Hearing this, the third Kazekage's tense expression eased slightly. "If she wants to grieve, let her." Then, shifting his focus, he asked, "What is the current progress of the Dragon Vein research? Can we increase the production scale of the clay puppets?" To him, Sasha was merely a key to unlocking the Dragon Vein's full potential. As long as she remained alive, he didn't care about her well-being. One of the lead researchers guided him toward the experimental facility. "Lord Kazekage, we have discovered that the Dragon Vein's energy can be converted into refined chakra. We have successfully transformed the entire Uran Kingdom into a mobile fortress. Additionally, we have found that exposure to the Dragon Vein's energy keeps human cells active indefinitely. With further refinement, we may even achieve human-to-puppet transformation. If we can master remote control over this energy, Sand Village will hold the power to dominate the entire shinobi world." The researcher's voice grew more fervent as he spoke. Having witnessed the Dragon Vein's might firsthand, his excitement was undeniable. The third Kazekage, too, was captivated by the possibilities, eager to see the results firsthand. Meanwhile, high above the desert, Shin Uchiha had assumed his dragon form, carrying Mikoto and Kanako on his back as they soared toward Uran. "Wow! Shin-kun, you can turn into a dragon? Young master, your scales are so smooth and cool it feels amazing." Mikoto gleefully grabbed onto his whiskers, her laughter echoing in the wind. Kanako, lying on his back, wriggled against his scales, savoring the sensation. Shin Uchiha groaned in annoyance. He had transformed purely for the sake of speed, not to provide entertainment. "You two really think this is a game, don't you?" he grumbled. "I can feel everything you're doing. Stop moving." With a deep growl, he flared his golden wings, catching the sun's rays as he propelled them forward at breakneck speed. As they neared Uran, Mikoto and Kanako finally regained their composure, staring in awe at the futuristic cityscape below. Such tall buildings. This place is even more advanced than Hidden Leaf Village. Neither had expected to find such a spectacle in the heart of the desert. Shin Uchiha, however, had 1,000 complaints brewing in his mind. Modern skyscrapers in this world? Complete nonsense. The sheer scale of Uran's infrastructure suggested a civilization on par with modern-day cities. He could only assume that the Dragon Vein's influence had led to this unnatural form of rapid development. "Mikoto, Kanako, let's split up. We need to gather intel. Breaking into a city as advanced as Uran with all three of them together would be too conspicuous. Moreover, He wanted to test their abilities. If they couldn't handle reconnaissance on their own, they had no business being here. Understood. Mikoto and Kanako nodded and disappeared into the city streets, ready to begin their mission. Shin Uchiha wasn't too concerned about their safety. Not only had he implanted them with the Sage Curse Seal, but Mikoto had already reached Jonin level strength. With the power of the Curse Seal enhancing her, her fully matured Sharingan placed her at an elite level, perhaps even strong enough to challenge a Kage. Kanako, on the other hand, was a formidable fighter in her own right. Her proficiency in sealing techniques and taijutsu made her the equivalent of a Jonin, and her exceptional sensory skills ensured she could anticipate most threats before they even arose. If the two of them worked together, they could likely survive an encounter with a Kage-level opponent. Satisfied with his preparations, Shin Uchiha turned his attention back to the city before him. To think I would find myself here now. With a flicker of chakra, he vanished into the shadows, slipping into the kingdom unnoticed. Chapter 70. As Shin Uchiha stepped into Urin, he felt an eerie sense of familiarity, as though he had walked into a modern city from another time. Towering buildings loomed over the streets, where people bustled about like ants beneath his gaze. Kagura's mind eye. Shin Uchiha fully unleashed his sensory abilities. Instantly, he could perceive the entire city, feeling the heartbeat of every living being in half of Urin. His gaze lowered to the ground below, and he murmured, "The Dragon Vein's power. It's buried deep under this land." While tracking the Dragon Vein's unique energy signature, Shin also picked up another peculiar presence: countless chakra puppets spread throughout the city. The entire Urin was tangled in chakra threads, with clay puppets hidden everywhere. Some were fused into the architecture, camouflaged as statues or decorations. But they couldn't fool his keen perception. There's another chakra presence here. Not as strong as Karura, but formidable nonetheless. That should be the third Kaze Kage. Shin's Sharingan swirled as he peered underground, catching glimpses of the third Kaze Kage patrolling a factory below. Humphrey, so Hidden Sand Village has turned Urin into its own war fortress. How deeply have they tapped into the Dragon Vein's power? Shin didn't rush in blindly. Unlike in the past, Urin was no longer just a lost city, it was a fortified battleground under Hidden Sand Village's control. The third Kaze Kage was a monster in his own right, and if he had harnessed the Dragon Vein's power, taking him head-on would be a reckless gamble. If I could assassinate the third Kaze Kage first, everything else would fall into place. As Shin muttered, his mind drifted toward a crucial figure. In historical records, the royal family of Urin had controlled the Dragon Vein. If he could find a surviving member and have them seal its power, his path would be much clearer. Transparency Jutsu. With a few quick hand seals, Shin vanished from sight. Gliding through the city unseen, he made his way toward Urin's palace. But as he entered, a chilling emptiness greeted him. Where is everyone? The entire palace was deathly silent. No guards, no servants, nothing but eerie desolation. Shin narrowed his eyes. Could the entire royal family have been wiped out? To confirm his suspicion, he created 5 shadow clones and sent them to scour every corner of the palace. Moments later, all of them returned with the same conclusion. TCH. Those bastards from Hidden Sand Village. Did they really massacre the entire royal bloodline? His fists clenched. If there was no one left to control the Dragon Vein, then there was only one option left. Destroy every underground factory and ensure Hidden Sand Village couldn't exploit the power. Shin knew they couldn't afford to let the Dragon Vein fall into enemy hands. If Hidden Sand Village succeeded, the entire balance of power in the shinobi world would shift. No matter what, Urin had to be taken away from them. Determined, he honed in on the chakra signatures of Mikoto and Kanako and moved toward them at full speed. Before he even reached them, the sound of violent explosions echoed in the distance. Feeling the resonance of the cursed seals he had placed on them, Shin's pace quickened. Unlike Shin, Mikoto and Kanako had entered Urin without the advantage of foresight. They had no way of immediately identifying the palace's inhabitants. Instead, they had opted for a simpler approach: interrogation. Kanako acted as their sensor, detecting enemy movements and ensuring they avoided high-risk areas. Once they isolated a target, Mikoto used her Sharingan to subdue them with Genjutsu, extracting information piece by piece. How long did it take to turn Urin into this monstrosity? The entire royal family was assassinated some time ago. Only one survivor, a girl? Hidden Sand Village is still recruiting Urin's people while replacing them with their own? And they're expanding the underground factories? As the pieces fell into place, a chilling realization dawned on them. A net had been cast over Urin, and Hidden Sand Village was pulling the strings. They knew Shin had mentioned the Dragon Vein's existence, but they had underestimated just how far Hidden Sand Village had gone to exploit it. However, as they gathered intel and mapped out Urin's layout, their actions didn't go unnoticed. A group of missing Hidden Sand Village shinobi raised the alarm, and soon, An army of puppet ninjas was deployed to hunt them down. Despite their best efforts to evade detection, they were eventually surrounded. Deep within Uran's underground command center, a hidden sand village ninja rushed toward the chief controller, Ebizo. Elder. We've detected intruders. Ebizo, the seasoned strategist wrapped in white cloth, immediately linked himself to the Dragon Vein's chakra surveillance system. Within moments, he saw everything through the eyes of the chakra puppets. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. Mikoto Uchiha wove a rapid sequence of hand seals, inhaled deeply, and unleashed a massive fireball that engulfed the nearest chakra puppet. The resulting explosion sent debris flying, but Mikoto didn't let her guard down. Because more chakra puppets were already closing in. Shing. 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 A puppet soldier's chest mechanism snapped open, launching a barrage of kunai controlled by chakra threads. Mikoto's Sharingan spun to life, instantly analyzing the trajectory of the incoming weapons. Drawing her chakra-infused dagger, she nimbly dodged and severed the chakra threads that controlled them. Mikoto-san. Watch out. Kanako's voice rang out as Mikoto turned her head toward a floating puppet. Unlike the others, this one had built-in cannon barrels for arms. A split second later, bright purple energy orbs launched from its barrels. Moonwalk, rotation. Mikoto channeled chakra to her feet and leaped several meters to the right in a sharp spin. Boom. 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 The energy blast struck a cluster of buildings behind her, detonating into massive fireballs. Judging by the sheer destruction, those blasts carried more power than her fireball jutsu. Kanako, who had been preparing something, finally made her move. Adamantine ceiling chains. Golden chakra chains erupted from her back, snaking toward the advancing puppets and wrapping around them, restraining their movements. Mikoto seized the opportunity, dashing forward and slicing through the chakra threads that controlled them. With their control severed, the puppet army crumbled, their bodies collapsing into lifeless husks, but they had no time to celebrate. Because more enemies were already on their way. Chapter 71. A shinobi from the Uchiha clan of Hidden Leaf Village. And a member of the Uzumaki clan? From his vantage point through the eyes of a chakra puppet, Hidden Sand Village's strategist, Ebizo, narrowed his gaze upon the two kunoichi. TCH. It seems someone in Muran's leadership has leaked our presence. There's no way these two are operating alone. Hidden Leaf Village must have sent additional forces. His tone turned sharp as he gave an immediate order. Deploy all nearby puppet squads. Make sure those two Hidden Leaf Village shinobi don't leave here alive. Muran's connection to the Dragon Vein must remain a secret until Hidden Sand Village was ready to strike Hidden Leaf Village at full force. If knowledge of Muran's power spread prematurely, other villages would undoubtedly see them as a rising threat and crush them before they could complete their preparations. As soon as Ebizo's command was given, the mechanism within the Dragon Vein's control chamber activated, and the puppet army moved into action, surging toward the two kunoichi like a relentless tide. From Mikoto Uchiha and Uzumaki Kanako's perspective, they had barely caught their breath before dozens, then hundreds, of puppet warriors encircled them from all sides. These chakra-powered puppets varied in form, some bore hidden cannons within their torsos, others brandished wickedly sharp claws, and all radiated an intent to kill. Kanako, looks like this just turned into a real fight. Mikoto muttered, gripping her chakra-forged tando. She stood back to back with her companion, her crimson Sharingan spinning as she assessed the swarm of enemies. Kanako smirked, rolling her shoulders as chakra chains extended from her back. Miss Mikoto, I hope you're not planning to hog all the fun. As soon as the words left her lips, an explosive chakra blast erupted toward them. The duo reacted instantly, leaping high into the air, dodging the attack, and counterattacking in perfect sync. Wind style, Gale Palm. Fire style, Dragon Flame Jutsu. A raging inferno, fueled by the pressurized wind, roared forward in a vortex of flames, consuming the incoming puppet forces. The first wave of enemies was incinerated instantly, while dozens more were blown back by the intense shock wave. Meanwhile, Kanako took a more direct approach, her golden chakra chains shot out like harpoons, skewering multiple puppets in rapid succession before she gathered chakra into her palms. Shigen, Jurenpaitsu. Finger gun, tenfold barrage, with a burst of sheer force, her 10 fingertips fired off rapid impact strikes, reducing the surrounding puppets to shattered remains. Yet, despite their valiant efforts, the situation wasn't improving. Ebizo watched from the control chamber, his expression unimpressed. They're strong. But they're only delaying the inevitable. Fueled by the limitless energy of the Dragon Vein, the puppet army did not suffer fatigue, nor did they require chakra. Even the destroyed ones quickly reassembled themselves. Puppet Heart, Dragon Vein Restoration. As soon as the command was issued, the fallen puppets began reforming, their shattered limbs and torsos snapping back together as if time itself had reversed. Within moments, Their numbers had nearly doubled. For the first time since the battle started, Mikoto and Kanako felt a flicker of desperation. Even with Shin Uchiha's sage-infused curse mark enhancing their chakra recovery, their physical stamina was still finite. Fighting an unending army wasn't just difficult, it was impossible. "Mikoto, Kanako, get out of there now." A voice rang out from a distance. Standing atop a ruined watchtower, a masked figure, Shin Uchiha, finally spoke. The two kunoichi, caught up in the heat of battle, suddenly realized their error. They had been so focused on fighting that they failed to retreat while they had the chance. And now, they were surrounded. Ebizo's eyes locked onto the masked Uchiha. So there was another one after all. Good. We'll eliminate all of them at once. With another command, a portion of the puppet army redirected its assault toward Shin. But he didn't move. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he simply pressed his hands together. Wood style, advent of a world of trees. A deep rumbling shook the battlefield. Massive tree roots erupted from the earth, splintering through the ruined streets of Uran like living titans. Towering trees rose at an unnatural speed, their colossal trunks twisting as thick branches lashed out, ensnaring and crushing the advancing puppets in a matter of moments. Mikoto and Kanako didn't waste the opportunity. The instant the battlefield shifted in their favor, they bolted through the growing forest, using the natural cover to flee. What? Ebizo gasped, his composure finally breaking. Wood style. A bloodline thought lost with the death of the first Hokage. If this masked Uchiha had inherited such an ability, then his potential. A cold chill ran through Ebizo's spine. This wasn't just a powerful shinobi. This was a future legend in the making. And that meant only one thing, he had to die. All forces, converge on him. We are not letting a wood-style user escape. The remaining puppets redirected all available reinforcements toward Shin. Even those intended for the front lines of the war were diverted to Uran. This was no longer about secrecy. This was about extermination. Ebizo himself stepped forward now, focusing every ounce of his puppetry mastery into a single, devastating move. Puppet Heart, Dragon Vein Colossus. Every broken puppet, every discarded fragment, was suddenly drawn together by the pulsing energy of the Dragon Vein. They fused into a single monstrous construct, a towering, grotesque colossus of chakra-infused metal and wood, standing taller than the surrounding ruins, with fists capable of leveling entire buildings. They built a damn mecha before we even got close to industrialization. Despite the ridiculousness of the situation, Shin wasn't intimidated. If anything, he was excited. He wanted to see what this thing could do. With an earth-shaking step, the giant puppet raised a colossal fist and swung it down at him. The sheer force of the attack caused a sonic boom, crushing everything in its wake. But just before impact, a gigantic wooden arm burst from the forest and caught the attack midair. Ebizo's breath hitched. Emerging from the sea of trees, Shin stood atop a titanic wooden warrior, a wood-style construct nearly equal in size to the Colossus. Wood-style, wooden golem jutsu. For the first time in decades, Hidden Sand Village's greatest puppeteer felt the sting of fear. If this shinobi was allowed to live, then he would become the next Hashirama Senju. And that was something Ebizo could never allow. Chapter 72 Wood-style, Wooden Man Jutsu. Shin Uchiha whispered internally as he stood atop the colossal wooden construct, staring down at the massive puppet looming before him. Two towering entities clashed in the heart of Uran, evoking the image of titans locked in combat. The wooden man caught the giant puppet's fist, pushing back with sheer force. The ground trembled with each step the puppet was forced to take, the impact akin to an earthquake. Boom. 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 Every retreating step of the puppet sent shockwaves through the city, the trembling felt even miles away. Mikoto, Kanako, and the citizens of Uran barely held their footing as the streets cracked beneath them. Meanwhile, deep within the control chamber, Ebizo and his group grimaced, their confidence rattled by the sheer power of Shin's wood style. This man must die immediately. Alert the third Kazekage at once. Ebizo barked orders while his hands never ceased moving. Kakakaka. The puppet's armored plating retracted, revealing an array of hidden weapons embedded within its chest. At the same time, the puppet's clawed hands rotated at high speed, transforming into enormous drills that spun menacingly toward the wooden man. Shin didn't flinch. The 60-meter-tall wooden titan clenched its fists and struck with devastating force. Wood-style, wood dragon jutsu. The massive wooden dragon coiled around the wooden man sprang to life. With a deafening roar, it lunged forward, coiling around the puppet and constricting it in place. The overwhelming force rendered its weapons and drills useless. Boom. The wooden man's iron-clad fist came crashing down. With just one earth-shaking punch, half of the giant puppet was obliterated. Shattered clay fragments rained upon the streets. Yet, inside the control chamber, a smirk played on Ebizo's lips. In Uran, Our puppetry is supreme. Suddenly, an intricate network of chakra threads shot out, pulling every shattered fragment back together. In mere moments, the colossal puppet reconstructed itself, standing tall once more, seemingly invincible. Ebizo's confidence soared. Let's see how long he lasts. With the power of the dragon vein, we can fight endlessly from a distance. Even a ninja who wields the legendary wood style will be ground down eventually. Puppet Jutsu, Super Dragon Vein Flame Bomb. The puppet's head split open, an enormous sphere of raw energy forming at its core. A blinding burst of violet chakra surged forth, hurtling directly toward Shin atop the wooden man. Bang! With incredible reflexes, the wooden man reached out, catching the energy bomb midair, its sheer power rivaling a tailed beast ball. Eat it yourself. With an effortless motion, Shin redirected the attack, shoving the volatile mass straight into the puppet's body. Boom! The resulting explosion sent shockwaves across the battlefield, flames reaching into the sky. The force of the blast obliterated structures, reducing an entire district to rubble. Mikoto and Kanako barely evaded the destruction, stumbling into an underground passage that led them beneath the city. What they found there was an entirely different world. The ruins of an ancient courtyard lay hidden below, bathed in golden light from cracks in the ceiling above. It was a stark contrast to the war-torn battlefield above, serene, untouched by the chaos. There's someone here. Kanako whispered sharply. They turned toward a shadowed corner where a girl with raven black hair crouched, fear etched across her face. She clutched her head and muttered, "Are you here to kill me?" Huh? Mikoto and Kanako exchanged bewildered glances. Meanwhile, back in the city, Shin narrowed his eyes at the reassembled giant puppet. His patience had run out. No matter how much damage he inflicted, the puppet restored itself with the endless power of the dragon vein. Worse still, more clay puppets swarmed from every direction, fusing into the behemoth, increasing its size until it stood level with the wooden man. These things aren't ordinary puppets. Shin noted, his gaze sharp. They're sustained by a fusion of clay, chakra threads, and the dragon vein itself. Magnet style is useless against them. His expression turned cruel, a sinister smile creeping across his face. In that case, let's be a little more ruthless. Bringing his hands together, he unleashed a flood of chakra, the sheer volume warping the air around him. Dust style, detachment of the primitive world. Buzz, a translucent cube formed between his palms before expanding outward, enveloping the battlefield in blinding light. Ebizo's eyes widened in horror as the colossal puppet, along with an entire district spanning several football fields, was instantly caught within the growing cube. This is... The next moment, everything within the barrier disintegrated into atomic dust. Boom. Nothing remained. Every puppet, every construct, even the land itself within the barrier's reach, gone without a trace. Inside the control chamber, the screens displaying puppet visuals went black. Ebizo and his team sat frozen in place, their bodies rigid with shock. Particle style? Impossible. That's the Sushi Kage's secret technique. No one else should possess it. But that scene just now, Ebizo's voice trembled as he muttered in disbelief, his mind unable to process the sheer devastation. Shin exhaled deeply, his chakra reserves drained from the large-scale attack, expanding the range, increasing the power, and sustaining the particle-style technique takes an absurd amount of chakra. He muttered. No wonder Aonoki rarely used it. The power of particle style was unparalleled in destruction, but its cost was immense. Even a shinobi with the reserves of Madara or Hashirama would hesitate to wield it recklessly. Even with Sage Mode and the Yin Seal, I can't keep spamming this. If I could, I'd just wipe this place off the map with 100 of them. He sighed, leaping down from the wooden man's head, heading toward Mikoto and Kanako's location. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of Uran, the third Kazekage arrived in a flurry of iron sand. His sharp gaze fell upon Ebizo, whose face was now lined with deep, aged creases. The Kazekage frowned. What happened? Ebizo, still in shock, barely managed to respond. Hidden Leaf Village. No, is he even from Hidden Leaf Village? His voice was barely above a whisper. He has wood style. He has particle style. And he's stronger than Aonoki himself. Ebizo's hands trembled as he spoke, as if questioning his own reality. Who is he? He whispered. And how can anyone possess such terrifying power? Chapter 73 Shin Uchiha dropped down from the crumbling ceiling above, sliding along a rusted pipe before landing lightly on the ruined courtyard below. As his feet touched the stone, he immediately sensed two familiar chakra signatures, Mikoto and Kanako. But there was something else, another presence. Another chakra signature? Shin muttered, his brow furrowing slightly. With a few swift leaps, he closed the distance to where the three figures were gathered. As he landed, his gaze settled on Mikoto and Kanako, who were sitting on either side of a black-haired girl, seemingly trying to comfort her. Noticing his arrival, the girl turned her curious eyes toward him. Their gazes met, and for a brief moment, they silently observed each other. The girl had long, jet-black hair that cascaded over her shoulders like a silken waterfall. Her deep brown eyes were white and clear, brimming with innocence, like a deer caught in the moonlight. Her pale, delicate skin was flawless, smooth as the finest porcelain. Her lips, soft and full, carried a natural pink hue, reminiscent of cherry blossoms in bloom. She was slender, her figure balanced with the vibrancy of youth, yet possessing an undeniable elegance. Shin quickly estimated that she was around 15 or 16 years old, older than him by a few years. Meanwhile, from her perspective, Shin appeared as a strikingly handsome boy around her own age, his sharp Uchiha features making an immediate impression. Shin-kun. Young master. Mikoto and Kanako called out in unison, snapping Shin out of his assessment. The black-haired girl widened her eyes slightly, realizing that the boy standing before her was a companion of the two kunoichi beside her. This is Sasha. Mikoto gestured toward the girl, motioning Shin closer. She was already here when we arrived. Kanako nodded in agreement. She's from the royal family of Rurin, but it looks like she's being watched by the Sand Ninja. Shin's gaze flickered with understanding as he processed the information. According to their earlier observations, Mikoto and Kanako had stumbled upon Sasha hiding in the ruins. At first, Sasha had mistaken them for assassins, but before they could clear the misunderstanding, two Sand Ninjas had appeared. After eliminating them, Mikoto and Kanako managed to calm Sasha down and learn more about her situation. Now, with Shin present, the pieces began to fall into place. Sasha. Shin said, his tone measured. You're the last surviving direct heir of the Rurin royal family, aren't you? Sasha's expression darkened. A heavy silence followed before she finally nodded. I am the only one left, she admitted, her voice carrying a tinge of sorrow. My parents were assassinated not long ago. I was the only one who survived. Her voice cracked slightly on the last words, and Mikoto and Kanako's faces softened with sympathy. Sasha, however, quickly steadied herself, taking a deep breath before locking eyes with Shin. You're outsiders, aren't you? What are you doing in Rurin? The forehead protectors worn by Shin, Mikoto, and Kanako clearly marked them as shinobi unaffiliated with the Sand Village. We're from the Hidden Leaf Village. Shin answered plainly. We're here to investigate the clay puppets the Sand Ninja have been using. There's a war happening outside, and the Hidden Sand has gained an advantage with these weapons. Our mission is to uncover the truth and put an end to it. Sasha's eyes widened in shock. There's a war? The clay puppets. They're being used in battle? She looked utterly bewildered. To her, the Sand Village had always been an ally of Rurin, collaborating to harness the power of the dragon veins. The clay puppets were merely tools, meant to aid in construction and protection, not instruments of war. But as she studied Shin's expression, realization dawned on her. It seems Princess Sasha has been kept in the dark, Shin remarked, a knowing smirk tugging at his lips. Sasha's fists clenched. She wanted to deny it, but doubts gnawed at her. In the wake of her parents' deaths, she had sensed a shift within Rurin. The Sand Ninja had become more authoritative, their presence heavier. But she had never questioned it, until now. After your parents were killed, Shin continued, the Sand Village took full control of Rurin, didn't they? Sasha's breath hitched. She wanted to refute his words, but no argument came to mind. Mikoto, who had been listening intently, narrowed her eyes. If only Sasha and her family can control the dragon veins. Why didn't the Sand Village just kill her, too? Her question hung in the air, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Before Shin could respond, Sasha answered in a quiet voice. The dragon veins haven't been fully unlocked yet. They still need me. I can activate it. I can control it. That's why they've kept me alive. Her voice trembled slightly, her realization weighing heavily upon her. Kanako stepped forward and, without a word, wrapped Sasha in a comforting hug. We don't have time to wallow in sadness, Kanako said firmly. We have to keep moving. We have to survive. That's what your parents would want. Kanako's words held an underlying bitterness, resentment toward the Sand Village, toward the Rock Village. Even toward Hidden Leaf Village itself. From Shin, she had learned the cruel history of the Uzumaki clan, how they were betrayed, hunted, and destroyed. She understood now that only power dictated survival in this world. And she would not allow herself to be powerless. Sasha, taking in Kanako's determined gaze, slowly nodded. The fear in her eyes dimmed, replaced by resolve. You should hold on to that determination, Sasha, Shin said, his tone shifting. Because you won't have time to sit around talking much longer. He turned sharply, his Sharingan activating as he gazed toward the courtyard entrance. A group of Sand Ninja had arrived. They moved swiftly, commanding their clay puppets forward to storm the ruins, only for the puppets to collapse the moment they crossed the threshold. What? The leading sand ninja exclaimed in shock. The power of the dragon vein doesn't extend here. Sasha explained, stepping forward. There's something about this place. I don't know the exact reason, but the energy is disrupted here. Shin immediately took note of the invisible chakra fluctuations. There was a seal, an ancient one, hidden beneath the courtyard ruins. A sealing technique crafted by the Uran royal family, designed to neutralize the dragon vein's influence. The sand ninja exchanged wary glances. They had long abandoned conventional wooden puppets, placing all their faith in the superior performance of clay constructs. Now, without their puppets, they were momentarily vulnerable. But retreat was not an option. They had orders to capture Sasha, and they would not return empty-handed. After a brief hesitation, the sand ninja drew their weapons and charged toward Shin and his team. TCH. Well, that's one way to speed things up. Shin muttered, slipping into a combat stance. Mikoto, Kanako, let's finish this quickly. Sasha, standing behind them, clenched her fists. This was war. And there was no turning back now. Chapter 74. Even though they had lost their puppets, their strength had only been halved. But they were still the elite of the Sand Shinobi, and their sheer numbers gave them an absolute advantage. 15 against 3. The advantage was mine. Wind style. The leading Sand Jonin had just formed a seal when Shin Uchiha casually flicked his wrist from a distance. Magnet style, iron sand coffin burial. Instantly, a surge of iron sand erupted from beneath them, latching onto their bodies and locking them in place. Then, the black flames of the Amaterasu ignited, consuming them whole. Their agonized screams filled the air as their bodies turned to ash, their chakra and life force siphoned into Shin Uchiha. He closed his eyes, letting out a content sigh as power coursed through his veins. Ugh! Ah! Sasha covered her mouth, horrified as she watched the Sand Shinobi struggle in vain. Noticing the calm expressions of Mikoto and Kanako, she forced herself to stay silent. Her impression of Shin Uchiha had always been that of a bright and handsome young man. But beneath that sunshine exterior lurked something terrifying. An evil spirit in human form. Within 10 seconds, all 15 Sand Shinobi had been reduced to dust, their existence erased from the world. Shin Uchiha, unfazed, dusted off his clothes. No KK Genkai among them. Nothing valuable to harvest. His voice was devoid of emotion. These shinobi had simply been a momentary distraction. The benefits of absorbing them were insignificant at best. As if nothing had happened, he turned to the group. Looks like this place isn't safe anymore. Let's find somewhere else to talk. Why yeah. Sasha, trembling, dared not protest. Without delay, they left the ruined courtyard, evading crowds and sand patrols until they found a secluded spot. Shin Uchiha wasted no words, immediately explaining his plan to Sasha. The best move now is for you to sever the dragon vein's power supply. Without it, the sand village loses its trump card. Then, I'll go in and clean them up. His tone was light-hearted, but Sasha felt a chill down her spine. Her gaze drifted back to the smoldering wreckage Shin had left behind in Uran. If it came to an all-out battle between Shin Uchiha and the sand village, Uran itself might cease to exist. And in their conversation, it became painfully clear, Shin had no attachment to Uran's people. They were nothing more than background noise in his eyes. Hidden beneath his bright smile was an unfeeling god of death. For the first time, Sasha felt an overwhelming pressure. She wasn't just trying to save Uran from the sand village. She had to save it from Shin Uchiha as well. Her mind raced. As the Queen's heir, she needed to find the people who had built the underground factory. They would have maps that would lead them to the source of the dragon vein. If they could locate it quickly, they could cut the power before it was too late. Meanwhile, in the sand village, the third Kazekage analyzed the intel with a recovering Ebizo. A girl from the Uchiha clan and a girl from the Uzumaki clan infiltrated Uran. They might have discovered parts of our plan. He furrowed his brows. And an unidentified masked shinobi intervened to rescue them. You're saying he exhibited wood style? And particle style? Ebizo, exhausted, nodded weakly. Lord Kazekage, we must find them. We also received word that Princess Sasha has been taken by them. They clearly know too much. Their objective is most likely the dragon vein. His voice was urgent. If they manage to seal it, the sand village is finished. The third Kazekage clenched his fists. Without the dragon vein's power, they had no chance against Hidden Leaf Village. His gaze returned to the surveillance footage of the masked shinobi's battle, the monstrous wooden titan clashing with the colossal puppet. Even as the Kazekage, he felt powerless watching it. His magnet style was strong, enough to make him one of the most formidable Kage. If not for Hanzo's poison, he would have been far superior to the salamander himself. But even with his abilities, the fight he had just witnessed was beyond comprehension. Onoki's particle style, combined with Hashirama's wood style. How the hell does such a monster exist? The third Kazekage muttered, his expression grim. If he fought this masked shinobi, he had no confidence in victory. Their power wasn't even in the same league. Seeing his concern, Ebizo spoke up. Lord Kazekage, there's no need to worry so much. We have successfully integrated the Dragon Vein's energy with our latest technology. As he spoke, Ebizo touched his chest lightly. His body instantly split into pieces, revealing that he wasn't human anymore. The torn limbs were made of clay-like material, reforming before the Kazekage's eyes. What the hell is this? The third Kazekage's eyes widened in disbelief. Ebizo calmly exposed the glowing core embedded in his chest. This is the pinnacle of our research, Dragon Vein puppetization. His voice carried an eerie excitement. By fusing puppetry with the power of the Dragon Vein, we found a way to store human consciousness inside a core. As long as the core remains intact, the body can be endlessly replaced. The Kazekage watched as Ebizo's artificial limbs morphed, first into a curved blade, then into razor-sharp claws, then a drill, and finally, a cannon barrel. With this transformation, my puppet body can change into any weapon instantly. Ebizo's grin widened. Muren's Dragon Vein supplies me with endless chakra. As long as my soul core is secured, I cannot be killed, even by particle style. Silence. Then, the Kazekage smirked. Ha! If we can mass-produce this, we could create an immortal army. He clapped Ebizo on the shoulder, excitement gleaming in his eyes. Ebizo hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice. Lord Kazekage. There is a limitation. The soul core requires a Kage-level chakra source to remain stable. His voice turned grave. As of now, I am the only one who has successfully undergone full puppetization. The Kazekage's expression stiffened. But soon, a dark thought crept into his mind. Losing one's flesh in exchange for absolute power and immortality? That price wasn't so bad. And if it meant surpassing his limits, then perhaps he wouldn't mind paying it himself. Chapter 75. In just one day, the third Kazekage swiftly underwent the process of harnessing the Dragon Vein's power through intricate puppetization, all under the meticulous arrangements of Elder Ebizo. With Elder Ebizo personally conducting the experiments beforehand, the third Kazekage's transformation proceeded seamlessly. At the same time, Shin Uchiha and his team secured a highly detailed topographic map of the underground factory, pinpointing the precise location of the Dragon Vein source. I was traveling all day yesterday, and by the time I arrived in Rurin, it was already afternoon. I even had a tough fight. A nice bath and a proper sleep would be perfect right now, yes, Lady Mikoto, but it's all thanks to the wooden house built by the young master. Mikoto and Kanako stirred from their sleep, their faces adorned with peaceful smiles. The moment they spoke, Shin Uchiha, nestled between them, slowly opened his sleepy eyes. How could he not be exhausted? After days of relentless work, he had finally gotten some well-earned rest. His Shin Uchiha inhaled deeply, taking in the soft fragrances of Mikoto and Kanako beside him, much like a contented feline basking in warmth. The two women groaned in protest, pushing and shoving him playfully, which forced him to fully wake up. He sighed inwardly, if only Tsunade were here. Sleeping without her ample pillows made for an unsatisfying experience. Back when she was around, waking up in the morning had its perks, his mouth always had something soft to hold. Though Mikoto and Kanako didn't have Tsunade's overwhelming curves, their delicate, silk-like skin and subtle fragrances were also quite enjoyable. If he weren't in such a hurry, he might have invited them for a fun round of medical checkups. Shouldn't we be setting off? Sasha, who had been lying on another bed, peeked over, her face flushed as she took in the cozy scene between Shin, Mikoto, and Kanako. Her gaze constantly drifted to Shin's sharp features, his naturally commanding presence making her heart race. However, a certain piece of information resurfaced in her mind. Shin Uchiha was only 12 years old. She had only learned this last night. The fact that he was just a preteen, despite his well-built physique and demeanor, was nothing short of ridiculous. He looked, and acted, like a fully grown man, and yet. Her eyes, against her will, darted down to the obvious tent in his sleeping robe. Sasha's mind short-circuited. The contradiction was too much to process. Shin, catching her flustered expression, smirked lazily as he sat up. Well, let's get today's problem sorted out. How are you adapting to the sage mark I gave you? Sasha immediately snapped to attention. I can already use the chakra dagger and the basic substitution techniques. That's good enough. Mikoto and Kanako will handle your protection otherwise. Shin nodded approvingly. Given that Sasha wasn't originally a ninja, the fact that she had adjusted to the sage mark so quickly was impressive. The four of them ate breakfast together while reviewing their plan. I'll draw the attention of the sand ninjas and delay their main force as long as possible. Meanwhile, I'll create several clones to follow you and reinforce Sasha's defense. Sasha, you only need to locate the Dragon Vein's core and seal it while we hold them off. Delaying a few people wasn't an issue for Shin Uchiha, but the real challenge lay with Sasha's task. As a precaution, he planned to create additional clones to personally oversee her protection. Once the Dragon Vein's power was sealed, Shin doubted that Hidden Sand Village's forces could retaliate in any meaningful way. After all, they were deep in Uran's territory. News of this battle wouldn't travel fast. There was no need to conceal his strength out of fear of being targeted by Madara Uchiha or Black Zetsu, not yet, anyway. Upon hearing the finalized strategy, Mikoto, Kanako, and Sasha all voiced their agreement. Sasha clenched her chakra dagger tightly, her resolve clear in her sharp gaze. With preparations complete, Shin Uchiha clasped his hands together. Wood style, wood clone jutsu. Several wood clones sprouted from his body, taking form before landing on the ground. Unlike regular shadow clones, wood clones retained a significantly larger amount of chakra and boasted superior durability. Even direct damage wouldn't dispel them as easily. Let's move. With that, Shin Uchiha darted out of the wooden house, while Mikoto, Kanako, Sasha, and the wood clones dispersed in different directions. Their objective, the Dragon Vein's core hidden beneath Uran's underground ruins. After carefully analyzing the map, Sasha realized that the Dragon Vein's source was directly beneath the ruins of an old courtyard. No wonder her mother had frequently brought her there. Her parents had never gotten the chance to tell her the truth about it before. Meanwhile, as Shin arrived at Uran's central plaza, a fierce excitement swelled in his chest. A bag of rice to carry. No, wait, I don't have the Rinnegan yet, so I can't use Shinra Tensei to bring pain to this world. But I can certainly find my own way to bring devastation. His hands came together in a seal, his golden eyes gleaming with raw power. This city is far too barren. Let's add some greenery. Wood style, advent of a world of trees. Boom. 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 The ground trembled violently, and within moments, Uran was engulfed by an enormous wave of vegetation. Thick vines erupted from the city's heart, rapidly coiling around buildings, flooding the metropolis with an ocean of lush greenery. Viewed from above, Uran had transformed into a vibrant, forested oasis. The vines snaked outward with terrifying speed, ensnaring every citizen and every hidden sand village shinobi in their relentless grip. Giant flowers bloomed across the vast sea of trees, releasing a thick, hypnotic pollen into the air. One by one, people collapsed, civilians, Geinin, Chunin, Jonin, none were spared. Mikoto, Kanako, Sasha, and the wood clones, all bearing the protective effects of the Uchiha Sage mark, remained unaffected. All obstacles standing between them and the Dragon Vein's core had vanished. Yet, amidst the sprawling green, two figures still stood tall, Elder Ebizo and the now puppetized third Kazekage. The battle has begun. That bastard just flooded the entire city in an instant using wood style. Ebizo growled, his artificial body creaking as he tightened his grip. He could scarcely believe the sheer scale of Shin's chakra reserves. Are we the ones harnessing the Dragon Vein's power, or is it him? The third Kazekage, unbothered by the destruction around him, merely clenched his fists. Humphrey. A monster like him must be eliminated. Freed from the limitations of his human body, he had never felt more powerful. An unending chakra supply fueled his magnet style, pushing his strength to unprecedented levels. For the first time, he felt confident in challenging this so-called monster. Let the real battle begin. Chapter 76. Ebizo and the third Kazekage buried their soul cores deep within an underground factory before launching their puppet bodies toward the surface. Boom. Boom. Two massive explosions later, the two puppetized shinobi burst through the wooden barriers sealing the ceiling, emerging into the war-ravaged landscape of Uran. Before, Ebizo had only seen this scene through the eyes of his puppet. Now, the third Kazekage witnessed it firsthand, and he was utterly shaken. A country. A full-fledged nation, sprawling across the desert. Hidden Sand Village had worked hand-in-hand with Uran, using their expertise in puppetry to erect these towering structures. And yet, that monster had blanketed everything with a single use of wood style. If I had faced him before becoming a puppet, I wouldn't have even had a 1% chance of victory. Ebizo's gaze fell upon Shin Uchiha, standing amidst an endless sea of flowers and trees, like a god looming over the battlefield. A deep, primal fear settled in his chest. I used every ounce of my puppetry skill before, and he still obliterated me. Now, even with the third Kazekage by my side, I'm not sure we can win. Kazekage. Do we stand a chance? After a brief silence, the third Kazekage's lips curled into a confident smirk. We will win. Ebizo exhaled, feeling a strange sense of relief at those words. Meanwhile, Shin Uchiha watched them from a distance, his Sharingan gleaming. What are these two talking about? By reading their lips, he picked up a particular phrase, "We will win." The hell? Did these two suddenly get possessed by 2.5 Satoru? These old geezers, wait a minute. Shin's gaze sharpened. Their bodies feel different. A realization dawned upon him. They actually did it. They used the dragon vein to turn themselves into puppets. Well, it makes sense. In the original timeline, some rogue hidden sand village shinobi pulled off something similar. And now, the entire village is behind it. Shin clapped his hands together. Immediately, the dense vines carpeting the ground lashed out, launching toward the airborne puppets. Puppet heart, dragon vein marionette. Ebizo reacted instantly, unleashing a barrage of chakra threads from his body. Chunks of high-rise buildings, loose clay puppets, and debris gravitated toward him, assembling into a massive puppet, nearly 100 meters tall. The battlefield trembled under its weight. Puppet heart, spinning blade tempest. Dozens of massive, rotating saw blades emerged from the colossal puppet's body, whirling at high speed. The razor-sharp discs shredded the approaching vines with ease. Even the thickest ones were diced to pieces, and the resulting vacuum slashes ripped through the battlefield, hurtling toward Shin Uchiha like a relentless storm. Wood-style, adamantine wood sphere. Dozens of dense wooden pillars erupted from the ground, clashing with the vacuum slashes midair. Boom. 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 The shockwaves rippled outward, sending gusts of wind whipping at Shin's cloak. His crimson eyes narrowed as he gazed at the towering puppet. I'm getting sick of fighting these regenerating Gundams. This is just a goddamn waste of my time. Wood-style, giant hand jutsu. Boom. 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 The ground quaked violently as massive wooden hands erupted from below, each one half the size of the gargantuan puppet. They shot toward Ebizo from every direction, leaving him no time to react. His giant puppet slashed at a few incoming hands, but the next wave smothered him completely. Massive wooden palms seized his limbs, pinning him in place. His main body was locked in an unbreakable grip, unable to move an inch. Even as Ebizo channeled the dragon vein's power, struggling to break free, it was useless. The third Kazekage's eyes widened in shock. Ebizo was crushed in just 2 moves? He had planned to wait for an opening, but now, he had to face Shin Uchiha alone. The initial panic faded, replaced by something else, the intoxicating power of the dragon vein. As long as he stood in Urin, he was invincible. Immortal. Infinite chakra. Who could possibly stand against him? Magnet-style, iron sand tsunami. The third Kazekage formed a series of seals, summoning waves of iron sand from the earth. More and more iron sand coalesced, spiraling into a massive vortex, a tornado of iron sand stretching from the ground to the heavens. Ha ha ha. Let's see you survive this. Without the dragon vein, this attack would have drained him instantly. But now, he could fire at full power without a care in the world. The iron sand tornado rampaged forward, like a god of destruction. Even the towering buildings caught in its path were obliterated in an instant. The third Kazekage was sure, there was no way Shin could block this, dust-style, original realm-stripping blade. A massive, translucent blade of pure destruction materialized and slashed forward in an instant. Shing, the iron sand tornado was cleaved in half. So was the third Kazekage. His severed lower body plummeted toward the ground, but he quickly manipulated chakra threads to stitch himself back together. His face darkened. What the hell? How is he using particle style so fast? Even Onoki needs time to charge. The third Kazekage couldn't even see Shin making hand seals. The bastard just yelled out a technique, and it happened. As he reassembled himself, Shin analyzed the situation. These bodies aren't their real ones. It must be like Sasori in the future. They hid their true core somewhere safe. His gaze flickered toward Ebizo, still struggling against the wooden giant hands. TCH. Annoying. Just stay put, old man. Sage art, adamantine ceiling chains. Shin's eyes sharpened as he entered sage mode, clapping his hands together. Boom. Hundreds of thick chakra chains erupted from his back, surging toward the restrained Ebizo. Oh, come on. Ebizo was completely immobilized, his puppet body utterly powerless against the sealing chains. The Uzumaki clan sealing technique? The third Kazekage inhaled sharply, eyes filled with dread. This masked man. First, Hashirama's wood style. Then, Onoki's particle style. And now, he's using the Uzumaki clan sealing arts? The horrifying thought crossed his mind. What if he pulls out the Uchiha's Sharingan next? Or worse, my own magnet style? That moment of hesitation was all Shin needed to prepare his next move. Chapter 77. The third Kazekage altered his killing move, and the flowing iron sand surged from all directions, enveloping the central area of Uran. Magnet style, Grand Sand Iron Realm. Now, everything within a 5-kilometer radius is my domain of iron sand. Floating within the shifting iron mass, the third Kazekage looked down upon Shin Uchiha with cold pride. Yet, faced with the Kazekage's proclamation, Shin Uchiha's expression did not waver. He simply responded in a calm, almost indifferent tone, "You hold your head too high." Magnet style, Iron Coffin Seal. With a mere flick of his palm, the very iron sand barrier that the Kazekage controlled turned against him. The vast iron grains, once his greatest weapon, now shifted, coiling around him, dragging him toward the earth like a cursed chain. What? My magnet style? Impossible. The third Kazekage was paralyzed in shock. For a brief moment, he didn't even attempt to resist. Seeing his own mastery stolen and turned against him, his mind went blank. Your magnet style? Shin Uchiha sneered, his crimson eyes gleaming. It belongs to me now. Hearing those words, the Kazekage was instantly jolted back to reality. Fueled by the power of the dragon vein, his chakra flared violently, bursting through the iron sand restraints. He soared into the air, his gaze no longer holding contempt but sheer killing intent. He spoke no more. With a furious motion, he waved his hand, causing massive waves of iron sand to surge forward, aiming to obliterate Shin Uchiha. There was no hesitation, no retreat, only mutual destruction. With an immortal body and infinite chakra, the Kazekage had chosen his strategy, to drown Shin Uchiha in an endless storm of metal until nothing remained. Meanwhile, deep within the underground factory, Mikoto, Kanako, Sasha, and the others had carved their way toward the core of the facility. Ebizo, who had been previously restrained by Shin Uchiha, noticed the intrusion and immediately redirected his energy to intercept them. Rikiri. 4 of Shin Uchiha's wood clones unleashed crackling lightning from their feet, obliterating the wave of clay puppets and severing the chakra threads controlling them. With the puppets temporarily destroyed, Mikoto and the others wasted no time pushing forward. The Sage Seal allows my wood clones to sustain chakra, but the output is still limited. Shin Uchiha mused as he controlled his clones from afar. The farther they are from the main body, the weaker they become. To truly kill Ebizo and the third Kazekage, he needed to locate their core. Shin had already killed the third Kazekage multiple times, yet the man continued to rise. This confirmed his suspicion, the real core of his existence was hidden elsewhere. Releasing his Kagura mind's eye, Shin Uchiha scanned the surroundings, but his search turned up nothing. The dragon vein's power is too vast. It's masking their core's chakra signature. Annoyed, his 4 wood clones refocused their attention. From all directions, another horde of clay puppets stormed toward them. TCH. Annoying. You couldn't just stay sealed up there, you had to keep making trouble down here too, huh? Sage Mode, on. All 4 wood clones activated Sage Mode in unison. Sage Art, Giant Rasengan. Each clone formed a Rasengan, its diameter stretching to nearly 20 meters, before slamming it into the oncoming puppet army. The devastating force of the attack tore through the factory structure, causing massive collapses. However, amidst the destruction, Ebizo continued controlling his reassembled puppets with unyielding determination. He had abandoned his focus on the surface battle entirely, his priority was eliminating Shin's clones and protecting the factory's core. I won't let a mere clone defeat me. Puppet Heart, Light Barrier Seal. Harnessing the endless power of the dragon vein, Ebizo converted its energy into a massive chakra barrier, reinforcing the puppet army against Shin's relentless attacks. Bang! 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 All subsequent Rasengan strikes crashed against the barrier, failing to penetrate. Puppet Heart, Bladed Manipulation. Dozens of kunai, each controlled by chakra threads, shot toward Shin's clones in a deadly storm. Sage Art, Dragon Flame. One of the clones formed a quick seal, unleashing 5 massive fire dragons at once. Each dragon, formed by highly condensed chakra, carried enough destructive force to obliterate an entire ninja battalion. The incoming kunai melted into nothingness before they could even reach their target. Roar. The fire dragons surged toward Ebizo's monstrous puppet. But Ebizo remained unfazed. Puppet Heart, Triple Treasure Sealing. Utilizing his grotesque puppet form, he activated a technique meant to be performed by 3 separate puppets. A violent tornado erupted from the centipede puppet's mouth, sucking in the fire dragons, compressing their chakra within its mechanical belly. Then, without hesitation, the centipede puppet shifted, its tail splitting open to reveal a hidden compartment. A scorching beam of fire blasted out from its tail end. Feel the power of your own ninjutsu. This modified puppet technique not only absorbed attacks but could also redirect them. Though this method put immense strain on the puppet's body, Ebizo did not care. Even as his mechanical body cracked apart, Chuck-Raw threads quickly stitched it back together. Wood style, shield. The lead wood clone clasped his hands together, summoning a massive wooden shield, shaped like a grotesque, fanged demon face. The redirected fire attack slammed against the shield but failed to break through. Ebizo scoffed. It doesn't matter. My Chuck-Raw is infinite. My body is immortal. He grinned darkly. You can't defeat me. You can't kill me. However, the four wood clones ignored his rant. Instead, they shifted positions, standing at the four cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. 4 violet flames formation. This was a barrier jutsu originally belonging to Uzumaki Mido. Typically, 4 individuals were required to execute it. But Shin's 4 wood clones were enough. A rectangular barrier of violet flames erupted, sealing Ebizo and his puppets within. Any clay puppets outside attempting to enter were instantly incinerated by the scorching flames. Meanwhile, the centipede puppet trapped inside clawed at the walls, unable to break free. Seeing his predicament, Ebizo redirected his forces. Attack the intruders. Don't let them reach the dragon vein's core. As commanded, his remaining puppets shifted their assault toward Mikoto, Kanako, and Sasha. But against them, a dozen clay puppets were nothing. Kanako scoffed, cutting through them with ease. Lord Kazekage. This is bad. The enemy has reached the factory steps with Princess Sasha. Ebizo, now trapped, immediately relayed the dire situation to the third Kazekage. What? You couldn't stop them? Ebizo hesitated. I was trapped. By shadow clones. The silence that followed was deafening. The third Kazekage's expression contorted with unrestrained fury. What do you mean? Trapped by a shadow clone? He roared. Even clones can trap you now? Are you completely useless? Chapter 78. Ebizo had no choice but to endure. Shin Uchiha's 4 wood clones were not as powerful as his shadow clones, but they were still enough to overwhelm him. He had exhausted every technique in his arsenal, barely managing to hold his ground against the 4 clones at best. How dare you let your mind wander in the middle of battle? Dust style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. Shin Uchiha, floating in the sky, raised his palm and condensed a sphere of particle-style energy. The destructive force of the technique manifested instantly, vaporizing most of the third Kazekage's body along with his colossal iron sand construct, reducing them to atomic dust. As the battle raged on, Shin Uchiha became more adept at wielding particle style. The power was exhilarating. Each released beam of particle style slashed through the battlefield like a divine blade, carving through the third Kazekage's defenses without mercy. Below, the legendary Kazekage was nothing more than an insect struggling against an unstoppable force, trying to retaliate but being obliterated with the flick of a finger. From the start of this fight until now, the third Kazekage had become numb to the pain. Had it not been for his puppetized body and the immense Chuck-Raw reserves granted by the Ryomyaku, he would have perished at least 30 or 40 times by now. Yet here he was, struggling to stay alive, only to see Ebizo getting torn apart by a mere wooden clone? Fuck. I can't fight like this anymore. Frustrated and on the brink of mental collapse, the third Kazekage abandoned the thought of continuing this fruitless battle. Who in their right mind would willingly subject themselves to getting slaughtered over and over, only to be resurrected each time like a damn lab rat? Instead, he abandoned his broken body and activated the soul core hidden deep within an underground facility, reconstructing his physical form from scratch. His priorities shifted. He needed to stop Sasha and the others from sealing the Ryomyaku. That monster in the sky had to wait. Without the Ryomyaku's Chuck-Raw supply, the third Kazekage couldn't fathom how he would even begin to fight Shin Uchiha. Shin Uchiha, watching the Kazekage's retreat, turned his gaze towards the underground factory. TCH, too far to reach in time. Guess I'll have to rely on my wood clones. His body surged forward at high speed, all while diverting most of his attention to his clones below. The third Kazekage's reconstructed body arrived at the barrier enclosing Ebizo. A 4 purple flame formation. Makes sense now. Realizing what had happened, the Kazekage scoffed. Ebizo had been trapped by barrier ninjutsu, not that he had any interest in saving him. Instead, he flew straight toward the Ryomyaku's core. But Shin Uchiha had no intention of allowing that. The wood clones maintaining the barrier abruptly dispelled the technique, lowering the flaming walls. Ebizo, seeing this, looked at Shin Uchiha like he had lost his damn mind. The seal is down? You think 4 wood clones can stop both the Kazekage and me? What a joke. Ebizo's centipede puppet lunged at the wood clones, while the third Kazekage manipulated iron sand to crush anything in his way. Then, in an instant, golden Chuck-Raw surged from the 4 wood clones. The third Kazekage and Debizo froze as golden skeletal figures formed in the air. The bones rapidly developed into muscle and flesh before being shrouded in a thick, glowing layer of chakra armor. 4 fully formed Susanoo emerged before them. Are you fucking kidding me? That's the Uchiha clan Susanoo? Both men shouted in disbelief. It felt unreal, like a Ganjutsu-induced nightmare. But this was no illusion. Shin Uchiha's clones weren't interested in conversation. Every second they maintained these constructs, their chakra reserves and ocular energy were being drained at an absurd rate. Draining my ocular power like this is effective, but the chakra cost is insane. If not for the slaughter he planned later, wiping out the remaining Zen shinobi in Murin to replenish his reserves, he wouldn't have dared to use Susanoo so recklessly. Each Susanoo held a massive blade in one hand and an ethereal chain in the other. This weapon combination was a result of Shin Uchiha refining his left eye ability, soul transmutation, and integrating an evolved form of the adamantine sealing chains into Susanoo. 2 Susanoo warriors swung their blades down toward the third Kazekage and Debizo, while the other 2 lashed out with their chakra-forged chains. Faced with the overwhelming attack, the 2 finally snapped back to their senses. They had no time to ponder how or why Shin Uchiha could summon multiple Susanoo. Their survival instincts kicked in. Secret Puppet Heart, Ramyaka Hellfire Barrage. Iron Sand World Sphere. Explosions rocked the battlefield as their attacks clashed against the Susanoo constructs, shattering 2 of the avatars. But amidst the smoke, the remaining 2 Susanoo struck. The golden chains wrapped around the Kazekage and Debizo at lightning speed, binding them in an unbreakable grip. Their attempts to struggle were in vain. The chains weren't just durable, they actively suppressed chakra flow. With 2/3 of their chakra sealed, even the limitless Ramyaka energy couldn't free them immediately. Ah! The third Kazekage howled in rage and despair. Defeated by a fucking shadow clone. The humiliation was unbearable. Meanwhile, Mikoto and Kanako had successfully escorted Sasha to the Ramyaku's core chamber. The structure was a massive, suspended tower, with a single bridge leading to the glowing center. Below, a swirling abyss of purple-black chakra churned violently. Even after being exploited by the Kazekage and Debizo, and previously drained by the Sand Village, the Ramyaku's power remained seemingly infinite. Adamantine sealing chains. 5 chains erupted from Kanako Uzumaki's back, instantly entangling the remaining puppet troops pursuing them. Fire style, Rage of Sages, Flame of Phoenixes. Mikoto Uchiha unleashed a barrage of flame-coated shuriken, setting the battlefield ablaze with crimson fireballs that tore through the enemy lines. Boom. 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 The puppet forces were incinerated in the ensuing inferno. Hurry! Mikoto and Kanako shouted in unison. Sasha, already sprinting at full speed, called back, I'm moving as fast as I can. The markings of the sage seal on her hand glowed faintly, enhancing her physical capabilities. She dashed forward at a speed no ordinary person could match. Reaching the central platform, Sasha slammed both hands onto the sealing array inscribed on the Ramyaku's core. As her fingers made contact, the eye-shaped vortex at the center of the energy source pulsed with an eerie purple light. Sweat dripped down Sasha's forehead as she activated her bloodline ability, manipulating the Ramyaku's flow to initiate the shutdown sequence. A low hum resonated throughout the chamber as the Ramyaku's chakra began retracting into the earth. On the battlefield above, the third Kazekage and Debizo weakened instantly as their power source was severed. Seeing this, Shin Uchiha dispelled his Susanoo. He wasn't an eternal Mangekyo wielder, wasting ocular power unnecessarily wasn't an option. For now, his work was done. Chapter 79. Without the cover of the Dragon Vein's power, I've found your core. Wood style, wood human jutsu. Boom. The underground factory's ceiling suddenly exploded. A massive wooden construct smashed through the ground with a thunderous impact, forcing its way into the subterranean lair. Shin Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan scanned the area, instantly locking onto the soul cores of the third Kazekage and Debizo. Under the influence of Kagura's mind eye, their chakra signatures burned like torches in the darkness. The violent tremors alerted the 2 immediately, their hidden cores had been exposed. Wasting no time, they severed unnecessary thoughts and focused entirely on reconstructing their bodies. The moment they regained their forms and opened their eyes, a colossal hand tore apart the factory's roof, exposing them to the open air. Haha. We meet again. Don't even think about escaping this time. Shin Uchiha ripped off his mask, his cold gaze locking onto the 2 below. Upon seeing his face, the third Kazekage and Debizo immediately recognized him, Hidden Leaf Village's Thunder God. Shin Uchiha. How is this possible? How do you possess so many KK Genkai? Fear twisted their expressions. They knew Shin Uchiha would never let them leave alive. Shin, uninterested in entertaining their shock, simply commanded his wood human to strike, as if swatting down a pair of insects. Red secret jutsu, performance of 10 puppets. Magnet style, iron sand spiral shuriken. Faced with imminent death, both unleashed their strongest jutsu in a desperate bid for survival. But against the descending palm of the giant wooden construct, their attacks only managed to splinter its surface, scattering fragments of wood into the air. Boom! The enormous hand crashed down, crushing them beneath its might. Demonic soul devour. From Shin's right eye, black flames erupted beneath the wooden construct's palm, consuming everything they touched. Though the third Kazekage and Debizo no longer had physical bodies to drain vitality from, the vast chakra stored within their soul cores was still vulnerable. Ah! Their agonized screams echoed through the underground factory as the black flames devoured their very essence. 10 seconds later, the cries ceased. Their soul cores had been burned to nothing but ashes. Shin Uchiha closed his eyes for a moment, carefully absorbing the chakra residue and the knowledge imprinted within. The third Kazekage's mastery over magnet style had been fully assimilated into his own arsenal. Ebizo's extensive expertise in chakra threads and puppetry techniques had also been extracted and stored in his mind. The chakra of 2 Kage-level shinobi filled him with deep satisfaction. His cells buzzed with renewed vitality. His previously exhausted ocular powers had been fully restored, and his chakra recovery rate had accelerated significantly. My chakra control has become even more precise. I can even manipulate cells now. Shin raised his fingers, releasing nearly invisible chakra threads that slithered through the ruins. The shattered debris of the destroyed underground factory started shifting, reversing as if time itself had been rewound. The explanation was simple: he had used his newly refined chakra threads to reassemble the broken fragments. At a microscopic level, objects were never truly separate. They only appeared fragmented because external forces had disrupted the bonds holding them together. Of course, Shin couldn't yet manipulate matter at a molecular or atomic level. But after devouring the third Kazekage's magnet style, his power had evolved. He had advanced from merely controlling magnetism to commanding electromagnetic forces. Magnetism is merely an extension of electromagnetism, one of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. By crudely applying electromagnetic manipulation, he was able to glue materials back together. However, the precision required for such microscopic manipulation was immense. Even for Shin, it wasn't possible to sustain molecular or atomic level interference for long. But at the cellular level? That, he could already achieve. This wasn't DNA manipulation, that was still too complex for him. But simple cellular reconstruction? Healing wounds by forcing cells to reconnect? That was well within his grasp. If I go deeper into this field, recellular repulsion and recellular attraction could be fascinating research avenues. Too bad I'm not a scientist. Shin touched his chin, lost in thought. He had no interest in dedicating himself to research, nor did he have the patience for it. But there were others who did. Orochimaru, the legendary scientist of the shinobi world. While he didn't have that title yet, Shin knew he would in the future. That devious serpent isn't easy to control. A sinister glint flickered in Shin's eyes. If only I had a dojutsu or a technique like Kodo Umatsukami. Then I could control him without worry. Countless plans surged through his mind, but he quickly pushed them aside. It wasn't the right time. For now, there were more immediate matters to attend to. He turned towards the Dragon Veins Tower, heading for the central platform. There, Mikoto, Kanako, and Sasha stood among the lifeless husks of the clay puppets, their expressions still wary. Clearly, the battle had left a lasting impact on them. Mikoto, Kanako. You did great. Shin approached and immediately pulled both of them into a firm embrace. A faint blush crept onto their faces as they smiled in satisfaction. This was a mission, Shin-kun. We only did what was expected of us. Mikoto murmured, her voice soft yet proud. Noticing Sasha standing slightly apart, Shin turned and grinned before wrapping her in a warm hug as well. And you, Sasha. Sealing the dragon vein was the key to all of this. You were amazing. His gentle words sent warmth coursing through Sasha's chest. Feeling the solid warmth of his embrace, her heartbeat quickened. For a princess of the Uran royal family, one who had lived a sheltered life, this was the closest she had ever been to a man. Her pale cheeks flushed a deep red, betraying her inexperience. Shin, ever the mischief maker, knew better than to tease her too much, especially with Mikoto and Kanako nearby. As Sasha recovered from her moment of shyness, a sudden realization struck her. She turned to Shin, concern evident in her gaze. What about the people of Uran? Shin exhaled slowly, his voice steady. I did my best to shield them with wood style. As long as they stayed away from the main battlefield, casualties should be minimal. Sasha nodded in relief, a weight lifting from her heart. But the war was far from over. And Shin Uchiha had only just begun. Chapter 80. Hearing what Shin Uchiha said about Sasha, she breathed a sigh of relief. Sasha, her face still slightly red from earlier, bowed deeply and sincerely. Shin-kun, on behalf of the people of Urin, I thank you for your protection. If there is anything I can do to help in the future, please let me know, Shin-kun. She knew very well that Shin Uchiha had no obligation to protect the people of Urin. He sought gratitude and repayment for his efforts. As the princess of Urin, she understood this reality, having learned it from her parents. But for now, the only price she could offer was a verbal promise. After all, she was a penniless princess, not yet officially crowned as queen. Even when she did ascend the throne, she would face many challenges. With the sealing of the Rumyaku, she had already fallen out with Hidden Sand Village. Urin, isolated in the middle of the desert, was defenseless. Sasha knew she might need Shin Uchiha's help to survive future crises. Shin Uchiha did not reject Sasha's goodwill. To him, Urin held extraordinary value. The Rumyaku alone was reason enough to invest in its survival. For now, he hoped Sasha would become queen, which in turn would give him indirect control over Urin. He lacked the ability to manipulate the Rumyaku at present, but he would not let such a powerful resource slip from his grasp in the future. Returning to the surface, Shin Uchiha attracted the vines that had spread across the battlefield. He spared no sand shinobi, incinerating them all and absorbing their remains as fuel for his body. Hidden Sand Village had been monitoring Urin closely. Nearly 1/3 of their front-line forces had been stationed here. With thousands of their shinobi reduced to nothing, Shin Uchiha's previously depleted dujutsu reserves had nearly recovered. His physical strength and chakra levels had also surged. If he only relied on his lightning chakra mode and the 6 powers, Shin Uchiha believed he was not inferior to the Raikage of Hidden Clouds Village. While he lacked the years of physical conditioning that made the Raikage an absolute brute in raw durability, the gap was not insurmountable. Ordinary kunai and shuriken were useless against his reinforced body. Short of thousands or tens of thousands of explosive tags detonating in unison, attacks that weren't enhanced by chakra were simply not a threat to his life. Shin Uchiha estimated that his total chakra reserves had at least doubled since before the battle. If we go by the standard shinobi ranking system, I should already be at the Super Kage level in terms of chakra alone. Even if it's only at the entry level, it's still leagues above an average Kage. If I enter Sage mode, my chakra level should be second only to Senju Hashirama. The main limitation was his age. If he were just a few years older, Shin Uchiha was confident his chakra reserves would surpass Hashirama's. For now, he couldn't wield colossal scale sage art techniques like true several thousand hands. While assessing his gains, Sasha extended an invitation for him, Mikoto, Kanako, and the others to stay in Urin for 2 days. No matter what, please allow me to be a proper host to Shin-kun, Mikoto, and Kanako. Her voice was gentle and sincere as she invited them to remain. After returning to the Urin Palace, Sasha retired to her chambers and changed into her ceremonial princess attire. The elegant robes, adorned with the intricate designs of Urin's unique culture, accentuated her regal presence. Her delicate features suited the outfit well. Her slender brows arched slightly, and her lips, lightly touched with makeup, were full and rosy, giving her a soft yet noble allure. Her long, silky hair cascaded over her shoulders like a black waterfall, exuding an air of refined grace. Despite being 16, her figure was anything but childlike. Even the loose royal garments she wore were subtly shaped by her curves, forming gentle arcs that could not be ignored. Simply standing there, she exuded an aura of elegance and dignity. Upon seeing the transformed Sasha, Mikoto and Kanako displayed a visible shift in their demeanor. Unlike Shin Uchiha, who held no particular reverence for nobility, Mikoto and Kanako had been raised in an environment where aristocracy commanded respect. "Princess Sasha, how could we refuse your request?" Seeing such a breathtaking Sasha, Shin Uchiha had no reason to decline. He had already intended to stay for a couple of days to deal with the remnants of Hidden Sand Village's underground research facilities. Though he had no use for puppetry or other unconventional techniques, the knowledge stored in those laboratories held undeniable value. Noticing his acceptance, Sasha smiled sweetly, her warm gaze lingering on Shin Uchiha. In 2 days, she would officially ascend the throne, and she wanted Shin Uchiha and his companions to witness the moment. It would be the perfect opportunity to publicly recognize Shin Uchiha's contributions to Urin. As Sasha dined, her mind was already calculating ways to strengthen their bond. Then, a thought surfaced. Marriage. Despite Urin's isolation, it was not completely disconnected from the outside world. Trade routes and historical records proved its interactions with foreign lands. In Urin's history, there were accounts of marriages with outsiders. However, for the past few decades, Urin had remained secluded from the world. There was also something peculiar about the royal lineage of Urin. Perhaps due to the influence of the Ryumyaku, Every heir born into the royal bloodline had been female. As a result, Iran had always been ruled by queens. While they did not arrange political marriages with foreign rulers, they did accept husbands from outside their own kingdom. Sasha's own father had been the son of a merchant from another land, who had settled in Iran and married her mother. Considering this, Sasha unconsciously toyed with the hem of her robe, her mind racing. After sitting at the dining table, she found herself stealing glances at Shin Uchiha. Leaving aside everything else, based on his appearance alone, she had no objections. But he was only 12. Just realizing his age, Sasha wanted to slap herself. As a princess, she knew how inappropriate this was. But was he really that young? Her mind unwillingly flashed back to the morning when she had seen something. Though she had never witnessed a man's anatomy before, her instincts as a woman screamed that what she had seen was beyond ordinary. Shin Uchiha noticed Sasha's flushed face, her occasional stolen glances. He knew that look all too well, he had seen it before on Tsunade. What the hell was going on? Was this princess checking him out? I haven't even made a move yet, so why am I already being targeted? Is this her political instinct at work, or is it something else entirely? Shin Uchiha decided to play it cool. After all, they were still at the dinner table. And suddenly shifting the atmosphere into something ambiguous wouldn't be ideal. Chapter 81. During this unusually silent dinner, Shin Uchiha noticed that Sasha, Mikoto, and Kanako kept stealing glances at him from time to time. He wasn't sure what was on their minds, but he had the distinct feeling that he was being hunted. What a joke. Sasha was one thing, but why were Mikoto and Kanako also getting strange ideas? Lately, he had been secretly feeding them chakra-infused milk and giving them massages upon request. It started when Mikoto and Kanako expressed their desire to develop a physique like Tsunade's. If things progressed further, well, it wasn't exactly impossible. Though the size difference was significant, he had mastered life return. Combined with the effects of the modified cursed seal he had implanted in him, it should be fine, so long as he was careful. His mind wandered further. Tsunade was an established field, fertile and ready for plowing. On the other hand, Mikoto and Kanako were still tender soil that required cultivation. A delicate process. If he wasn't careful, he might traumatize them. That wouldn't be good for his future pleasant life. While Shin Uchiha was lost in thought, the dinner concluded quietly. Then, Mikoto and Kanako impatiently asked, "Where are we sleeping tonight?" Their intentions were clear. They obviously expected to share a room with him. Before he could answer, Sasha smiled elegantly. "As honored guests of Uran, we have prepared the finest rooms for each of you to rest." Mikoto and Kanako froze. There was something off about Sasha's words, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Nothing she said was wrong. If anything, it was the proper way to entertain guests. With no choice, they forced smiles and agreed, while Sasha looked rather smug as she exchanged a glance with Shin Uchiha. Shin had no objections. He had things to sort out in his mind anyway. Should he rush things, or wait a couple more years? That was a question worth considering. Led by one of the palace maids, Shin Uchiha arrived at a spacious bedroom. "Sir, this is your room. If you need anything, please call me." "All right, I understand." Shin Uchiha nodded in satisfaction and closed the door. With his mind clearer, he stopped thinking about the nonsense from earlier. Right now, the most important thing was how to secure Uran once he left. He needed to bring Uran under his control. If only I had mastered Flying Thunder God already. I need to make sure I learn it once I return. If the third Hokage refuses to comply, well, eliminating him isn't entirely off the table. Growing stronger had made him more brazen. But that was a matter for the future. Right now, he had to focus on the present. His mind drifted to the underground factories of Uran. While some of the production lines were damaged, the entire system wasn't completely broken. If he could use the clay puppets being produced there. No, Uran doesn't have any shinobi skilled in puppet techniques. The production lines could prove useful in the future, but for now, he had to set them aside. He briefly considered using yin-yang release to grant the puppets a simple consciousness and artificial life. However, he wasn't yet proficient in the technique, and mass production would be tricky. No point in making things difficult for himself. That left barrier ninjutsu as the best solution for Uran's defense. For that, I'll need help. The 3 snake princesses from Ecchi Cave are well versed in barrier techniques. Luckily, he had signed a summoning contract with them beforehand, so summoning them wouldn't be an issue. And he knew they loved consuming chakra. He could offer them some of his own, or better yet, let them absorb the energy from the dragon vein as payment. Summoning jutsu, knock, knock, knock. Just as Shin Uchiha was about to bite his finger, someone knocked on his door. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already early morning. At this hour, The only reason someone would be up was for mating purposes. Could it be Mikoto and Kanako making a late-night move? With a subtle use of his sensory abilities, he quickly identified the visitor. Not Mikoto or Kanako, it was Sasha. She stood outside the door, having changed into a short skirt and a sleeveless top. Her expression was shy, hesitant. Shin Uchiha opened the door slightly, allowing the Ruin princess to enter. Click. The door closed softly behind her. Now, only the two of them remained in the room, facing each other. Shin smirked and patted the edge of the bed, gesturing for her to sit. Sasha, as obedient as a well-trained kunoichi, sat down beside him without question. She lowered her head, her ears tinted red. Her entire demeanor was that of an inexperienced girl venturing into unknown territory. Cute. Shin Uchiha couldn't resist teasing her. He twirled a strand of her dark hair between his fingers, watching her squirm. Princess Sasha, you've come so late at night. Is there something you need from me? She bit her lower lip, her fingers fidgeting. Just sitting here seemed to take all her courage. But the thought of Shin Uchiha leaving after tonight rekindled her determination. She stole a glance at him, her eyes flickering with hesitation. Her long lashes trembled as she parted her lips. Her voice was barely a whisper. Shin-kun, I hope you can. As if realizing how weak her voice was, Sasha quickly lowered her head further, trying to hide her nervousness. Shin Uchiha released her hair and instead lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. Princess Sasha, speak up. I can't hear you. His tone was teasing, his breath warm against her ear. If you keep acting cute like this, you'll make me angry. Or, are you doing this on purpose, Princess Sasha? His voice, rich and magnetic, sent shivers down her spine. Her flushed cheeks bloomed into a deeper shade of red, like a ripe fruit begging to be plucked. I didn't mean to. She mumbled, her voice barely audible. But then, his large hand slid around her waist, the warmth seeping through the fabric of her clothes. Sasha's mind went blank. Her lips parted involuntarily, forming incomprehensible sounds before she finally managed to whisper, please. Have mercy on me, Shin-kun. Chapter 82. A soft whimper escaped the girl's lips. Hearing the sound, Shin Uchiha stirred from his slumber, his sharp senses returning to him as his gaze fell upon the girl beside him. Her pale skin was flawless, smooth as polished jade, and her black hair cascaded like a silken waterfall across the pillows. The sight alone sent a wave of memories rushing back, memories of the innocence and sweetness that had belonged to her the night before. It was different from the full-bodied, overwhelming presence of Tsunade. The raw, unripe allure of youth had its own unique flavor, one that was intoxicating in its own right. And the skills he had honed tirelessly with Tsunade made him an overwhelming force against the inexperience of this girl. Even though she had tried to endure with sheer will, she had ultimately been defeated. Hiss. His fingertips lazily trailed across her bare back, relishing the silky sensation against his skin. The soft, warm touch made Shin Uchiha more alert, more aware. His gaze lowered, catching sight of a crimson mark on the sheets, a stark contrast against the pristine white of her body. His expression remained unreadable as he traced his fingers along her shoulder, the movement causing the girl's eyelashes to flutter. Slowly, her eyes opened, still dazed from exhaustion. Am I still alive? Sasha murmured groggily, her mind struggling to piece together the events of the previous night. The figure in her memories overlapped with the man before her, his presence suffocating yet undeniably magnetic. The realization struck her like lightning, and the haziness in her gaze was swiftly replaced by a deep, overwhelming shyness. As she took in the smoldering look in Shin Uchiha's eyes, heat surged through her body like wildfire. Embarrassment erupted from deep within her, and in a panic, she attempted to sit up and cover herself. But the moment her gaze fell on the torn remnants of her clothing scattered across the floor, her breath hitched. Her only choice was to desperately clutch at the tattered fabric, trying to cover her bare form. But her trembling hands only served to make the situation worse. Her attempt at modesty only accentuated the curves she sought to hide, turning her into a vision of vulnerable allure. The combination of innocence and flustered beauty made something primal stir within Shin Uchiha. Sasha felt the heat of his gaze searing into her, making her shudder. Shinjun, don't look, she whined weakly, her voice barely above a whisper, her face tinged with an adorable shade of pink. Shin Uchiha smirked, amusement glinting in his eyes. What's the point in being shy now? It's not like I haven't seen everything already. I'll call for a maid to bring you something to wear. Before she could react, he reached out, easily pulling her back down and covering her with the blanket. His voice, though teasing, carried a note of finality. Rest for now. Leave everything else to me. Okay. Sasha bit her lip, face filled with both resentment and reluctant obedience, but she still nodded. Shin Uchiha didn't push further. He knew her limits. After all, he had thoroughly tested them last night. Any more, and she might actually break. After dressing, he left the chamber. The moment the door clicked shut, Sasha buried herself under the blanket, her entire body curling up in shame. Her tiny fists clenched as she pounded weakly at the pillows in frustration. Why had she been so helpless? At that moment, she had felt like a mere plaything, tossed about at his whims. And why the hell is he so skilled? Sasha groaned, shaking her head furiously to rid herself of the vivid memories that flooded back. But in the end, she reminded herself of her place. She had no right to expect anything more than this. A short while later, a maid entered, bringing fresh clothes as per Shin Uchiha's order. The moment the maid caught sight of Sasha's state, understanding dawned upon her. It seemed like Uran had found its true master. Meanwhile, a refreshed Shin Uchiha made his way outside the palace, where he spotted Mikoto and Kanako. But something was off. Unlike their usual affectionate interactions, the two were currently engaged in a fierce sparring match. Ha! Take this. Bang. 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 Fists met forearms, legs clashed against each other, and the sheer force of their movements tore up patches of grass beneath them. Shin Uchiha frowned. What was this about? It couldn't be that they had found out about last night, right? No. He had made sure no one was watching. So what was going on? What he didn't know was that both of them had, in fact, planned to ambush him the previous night. But fate had other plans. As they had snuck around in the darkness, they had run into each other at a corner, completely by accident. The sudden confrontation had led to an awkward standoff, which had then escalated into a silent battle of frustration. The tension from their failed mission had carried over to this morning, resulting in the aggressive sparring session before him. As Shin Uchiha approached, the two women halted, momentarily frozen. The air was thick with awkward silence as the three exchanged glances before hastily looking away. Shin Uchiha cleared his throat, trying to dispel the tension. Ahem. I'm heading out to set up Uran's barrier jutsu. What the hell are you two doing? Nothing. Just sparring. Mikoto replied immediately. Right. Just a friendly match. Kanako added, nodding along. Their synchronized responses were unconvincing. Sensing that this was not a situation he wanted to linger in, Shin Uchiha decisively turned on his heel and left without another word. As soon as he was gone, Mikoto turned to Kanako, her expression sharp. All right, spill it. Just how far have you and Shinjun gotten? Kanako raised a brow. I could ask you the same thing, Mikoto. A heavy silence hung between them before they both sighed. Perhaps it was time for an honest conversation. Deep within Uran's underground factory, Shin Uchiha approached the sealed source of the dragon vein. He placed a hand on the barrier, and a faint pulse of energy resonated through him. Interesting. It seems like I can resonate with the dragon vein now. Slowly, he extracted a sliver of its power. The vibrant, violet energy coursed through his body, filling him with raw vitality. Before, absorbing such energy had been risky, like attempting to tame a raging storm. But now, something had changed. His body accepted it, albeit in small doses. His Sharingan gleamed as he analyzed the flow of energy. His chakra reserves had strengthened, and even his ocular abilities seemed to be recovering faster than before. If I can harness this steadily, my power will grow exponentially. But if I overdo it, my body will explode. Not ideal. He withdrew his hand, sealing the dragon vein once more. His primary objective here wasn't just absorption. He needed this power to reinforce Uran's defenses. I can't do this alone. Last night, I got sidetracked. Time to call in some reinforcements. He bit his finger, forming the necessary seals. Summoning jutsu, 3 serpent princesses. A summoning array flared to life beneath him. Chapter 83. Bang, bang, bang. 3 streams of white smoke burst into existence, dissipating to reveal 3 graceful figures, the serpentine priestesses of Ecchi Cave, summoned before Shin Uchiha. Tenka, Ecchi and Tsujinji emerged from the mist, their elegant forms exuding an aura of mystery. The 3 snake priestesses bowed slightly, their golden eyes locked onto Shin. Master Shin Uchiha, summoning the 3 of us together. Something serious must be happening? Ecchi mused, her voice carrying a teasing lilt. Usually, 1 summoning was enough. Calling all 3 at once meant this was no trivial matter. However, the air around them was eerily calm, leaving the 3 snake priestesses perplexed. Shin let out a breath and crossed his arms. Let me explain. He succinctly recounted the events surrounding Uran and the dragon vein. The 3 snake priestesses, absorbing the gravity of the situation, turned toward the dragon vein's core, their eyes widening in astonishment. No wonder the natural energy here is so thick. Tenka murmured, feeling the sheer density of power in the air. A materialized dragon vein. This is unprecedented. Ecchi floated towards Shin, arms crossed beneath her ample chest. Shin-sama, Setting up a barrier that covers an entire country isn't exactly a simple weekend project, you know. Don't be discouraged. Sujinji interjected, a sharp gleam in her eyes. If we can properly harness the Dragon Vein's power, it's possible. Her words carried weight. Constructing a barrier jutsu of such magnitude would require an astronomical amount of chakra, but the Dragon Vein itself provided a perfect source of energy. If they could successfully connect the vein's power to the barrier's framework, the process would become much smoother. It's not impossible. Shin affirmed, retrieving an old scroll filled with data on the Dragon Vein, confiscated from Hidden Sand Village intelligence. I've collected information left behind by the Sand Village. Let's see if we can make this work. Gathering on the platform near the Dragon Vein source, the four began an in-depth discussion of the necessary seals and formations. The three priestesses were experts in barrier techniques. The illusionary domain surrounding Ecchi Cave? That had been their handiwork. After an intense exchange of knowledge, a conclusion was reached. They would construct a layered barrier, incorporating the illusionary aspects of the Ecchi Cave's natural defenses. We need to tweak a few things. Sujinji suggested. It would be best if we could make the entire ruin vanish rather than simply placing an illusion over it. A mere mirage might attract unwanted attention. Shin nodded. That makes sense. Tenka added, the barrier should have properties akin to a maze. If we only make it invisible, skilled shinobi could still walk right in. We need to ensure they unknowingly bypass ruin entirely. Finally, we need a failsafe. Ecchi Kishimaheim chimed in, her sharp nails tapping against her lips. In the event that the barrier is discovered, it must have some level of defensive capability. Shin absorbed their suggestions and then unfurled another scroll, revealing his own calculations and theories. Combining their expertise, they devised a new jutsu, Dragon Vein Seal, Phantom Dominion, a barrier jutsu designed to be fueled by the immense power of the Dragon Vein. How it works: 4 sealing talismans are placed at the cardinal points of Urin, north, south, east, and west. These talismans link to the Dragon Vein's energy, creating a barrier that distorts perception, rendering Urin invisible. Each talisman serves a distinct function: north, invisibility field; south, illusionary deflection; east, defensive reinforcement; west, chakra conversion, sustains the barrier by drawing from the Dragon Vein. To disable the barrier, one must locate and destroy the west talisman, which acts as the core energy supply. This weakness was an unfortunate necessity. There wasn't enough time to perfect an alternative solution. Given more preparation, the technique could be refined further. The Dragon Vein Seal, Phantom Dominion. Wasting no time, the four dispersed, moving to their designated locations to bury the talismans. Then, channeling Sage Chakra, they simultaneously activated the seal formation. Buzz. An ethereal hum filled the air as the talismans resonated, weaving the barrier into existence. In an instant, Urin ceased to exist from an outsider's perspective. Where there had once been a grand city, there was now only endless desert. Sweat dripped from Shin's brow as he regrouped with the priestesses. Phew. Thanks for your help, ladies. He exhaled deeply before flashing them a smirk. So, what kind of reward do you want? The 3 snake priestesses exchanged knowing smiles. Tenkaheim stepped forward, her fingers trailing lightly across Shin's chest. Her golden eyes shimmered mischievously as she purred, Master Shin, your appreciation is the greatest reward I could ask for. Ecchi Kishimaheim hovered closer, licking her lips. Although, if you insist, I wouldn't mind a taste of your chakra. Sujinji blushed, hesitating before whispering, I'd like to drink a little of your blood. Shin arched a brow. The way Sujinji looked at him was more akin to someone in heat rather than someone merely asking for a sip of blood. Well. Alright, go ahead. Without hesitation, the 3 women descended upon him. Tenkaheim's lips pressed against his shoulder, her fangs piercing just enough to draw a trickle of blood. Ecchi Kishimaheim nipped at his neck, siphoning a small amount of his chakra directly from his life force. Sujinji bit down on his wrist, drinking deeply. The sensation wasn't painful. If anything, it was strangely pleasurable. Soft, warm, and wet, an array of sensations rippled through Shin's body as he endured their feeding. Their bites felt less like an exchange of energy and more like a teasing, intimate act. Just as Shin was about to say something, a sharp voice cut through the moment. Shin-kun. Master Shin. What exactly are you doing? Mikoto and Kanako stood at the edge of the platform, their eyes narrowed dangerously. The 3 priestesses halted, their lips still pressed against Shin's skin. A beat of silence passed before Tenkaheim chuckled. Oops, looks like we got caught. With a seductive whisper, she leaned into Shin's ear. We'll see you later, Master Shin. And perhaps next time. A better reward? Leaving him with lingering glances, the 3 snake priestesses vanished in a swirl of mist. Shin wiped his neck and muttered, better reward? The only thing left is my damn flesh. If they think I'll let them eat me. Hey, maybe I should eat them first. The bite marks on his skin quickly healed as he turned toward the two women now glaring at him. First of all, don't say a word. Mikoto and Kanako crossed their arms but remained silent. Seeing that he had diffused the situation, Shin quickly explained what had just happened. Oh, so that's what it was? Kanako smirked knowingly. Yeah. Mikoto's gaze lingered on him before she sighed. Well, in that case. Kanako nudged her. Still, from where we were standing, it definitely looked like you were getting seduced by 3 snake women. Not gonna lie, it kinda felt that way too. Chapter 84. Mikoto stared at Shin Uchiha with a complicated expression. I never expected that the summoned creatures of Ecchi Cave would be 3 snake princesses. She suddenly felt that these sneaky women were multiplying like stray cats. Kanako was acceptable, they had just finished reconciling and had a decent conversation. Mikoto didn't mind her too much. If Kanako tried to steal her Shinkan, she could still deal with it. But the arrival of 3 seductive snake princesses? That was the breaking point. People. Even if they were summoned beasts, they were still people. Why did even summoned creatures get the chance to steal her man? As someone who considered herself Shin's rightful fiancé, Mikoto was starting to feel immense pressure. Meanwhile, Shin Uchiha, oblivious to Mikoto's turbulent thoughts, believed the matter had been put to rest. Future problems, like rival suitors, were problems for the future. As long as Mikoto never found out, everything would be fine. Feeling reassured by his own logic, Shin Uchiha followed Mikoto and Kanako back to Uran Palace. Sasha, having caught up on much-needed sleep, came to greet them in high spirits. Mikoto and Kanako noticed that Sasha seemed even more beautiful than the day before. Her entire demeanor had transformed, like a delicate bud blooming into a vibrant flower. With the power of the immortal curse mark healing her body, Sasha was now able to move freely. Sorry for not being up earlier to greet you too. I had a late night, Sasha said with a charming smile, an unmistakable sultriness in her gaze. Mikoto and Kanako blinked. Something about her was different, but they were too young to understand exactly what had changed. They politely declined Sasha's apology, and the conversation moved in a harmonious direction. Only Shin Uchiha noticed the way Sasha kept sneaking glances at him, her eyes glimmering with mischief. Every now and then, she even winked at him subtly. Clearing his throat, Shin Uchiha stepped forward. I created a barrier using the power of the dragon vein. It will keep her unsafe. Sasha, you don't have to worry about Hidden Sand Village's retaliation. Once I handle everything else, I'll return. Sasha's heart swelled with warmth and security. At the same time, she felt guilt. She had become too reliant on Shin Uchiha. Without him, she didn't even know what the future of Uran would be. Blushing, she whispered, then. I hope Shinkan visits often. I'll welcome you with the highest form of Uran's hospitality. Of course. Shin replied smoothly, his gaze meeting hers knowingly. Glancing over at Mikoto and Kanako, who were still deep in conversation, Shin leaned down and whispered in Sasha's ear, tomorrow, I want to see the true queen of Uran. You understand what I mean, don't you, Sasha? A shudder ran through her face turning crimson. Sasha moaned lightly, lowering her head, unable to meet his gaze. Neither Mikoto nor Kanako noticed the hushed exchange, too preoccupied discussing the snake princesses. The night passed quietly. The next morning marked the day of Sasha's coronation. However, instead of preparing like a proper queen, Sasha knelt before Shin, diligently attending to a very different duty. Stroking her messy hair, Shin smirked. It's time to go, my queen. You can't be late today. Gulp. Sasha swallowed, giving him a resentful yet affectionate glance. Whose fault was this? He was the one who insisted she keep the ceremonial outfit on. How unfair. After a moment of sulking, she straightened up and adjusted her robes. The lingering scent on her clothes made her blush, but there was no time to change. With no other choice, she stepped out, walking towards the coronation venue. As Shin watched her walk with elegance and determination, he thought to himself, if Sasha had only matured physically before, today she was truly stepping into her role as a queen, both in body and mind. Standing on the grand stage, Sasha exuded both majesty and warmth, like a fully bloomed rose. Her voice was steady, her presence regal. From a distance, Shin watched over her with a small smirk, silently offering his support. Once the ceremony ended, he didn't linger. Taking Mikoto and Kanako with him, he left Uran behind. Sasha stood on the balcony of her palace, gently caressing her belly, watching Shin disappear into the horizon. After departing Uran, Shin and his group quickly made their way toward the battlefield between Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Sand Village. Dark clouds loomed over the war zone. Inside Hidden Sand Village's main war camp, Chio was seething. She had just received devastating news: the hidden sand village had been attacked. And the worst part? Shin Uchiha had vanished at the same time. Connecting the dots, she came to a horrifying realization: that brat was behind it. A wave of reports flooded in. A group of high-ranking officials and elite ninja had been wiped out, and then, as if by magic, Uran itself had disappeared from their maps. But the true nightmare was the next piece of intelligence: the third Kazekage, her brother Ebizo, and an entire squad of elite shinobi, all missing. What? Chio screamed, slamming her fists onto the table. How could they be missing? We know where Uran is. How the hell did it just disappear? Her normally composed demeanor was shattered. The war effort had already been suffering due to a halt in the production of her clay puppets. And now this? This was nothing short of a catastrophe. A leader. Her own brother. An entire squad of hidden sand village's finest. Gone. As the reality settled in, a dark thought crept into her mind: they weren't just missing. They were dead. But she refused to accept it. She wouldn't believe it. Hidden Leaf Village's White Fang had taken her son and daughter-in-law. And now, Shin Uchiha had taken her brother. This was a level of pain and loss she had never imagined enduring. Find him. Keep searching. Chio roared, her voice trembling with fury. At the very least, I want information. Track Shin Uchiha. He must have gone to Uran. Chio's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her skin. She had already made up her mind: this wasn't over. Hidden Sand Village would make that Uchiha bastard pay. Chapter 85: Chio's madness and the resistance of the Sand Ninja finally came to an end with the return of Shin Uchiha. The moment news of Shin Uchiha's arrival at the front-line camp spread, Chio understood that everything had become irreversible. Earlier, she had ventured to the battlefield to confirm the rumors that spoke of Shin Uchiha single-handedly massacring thousands of Sand Ninja with a single stroke of his lightning style. The scorched earth, the lingering scent of burnt flesh, and the suffocating air of death haunted her senses. A few days ago, the supply of clay puppets had run out, forcing the Sand Ninja to retreat time and time again. Knowing that Hidden Sand Village could no longer match Hidden Leaf Village's might, Chio had no choice but to organize a surrender. One of her conditions for surrender was to learn the truth about the disappearance of the third Kazekage, her brother Ebizo, and numerous high-ranking officials and Sand Ninja who had vanished without a trace. However, when it came to the secrets of the Uran Dragon Vein, Chio had no intention of revealing anything. After hearing her terms, Sakamo Hatake, as the commander of the front line, turned to Shin Uchiha for answers. To be honest, he himself was curious about what Shin had done behind enemy lines. What kind of chaos did you unleash to make an entire village crumble? The third Kazekage, Ebizo. So many prominent figures missing. They're dead, aren't they? In response to Sakamo's curiosity, Shin Uchiha simply smiled. I merely went to their rear and destroyed their puppet production line. I have no idea about anything else. That being said, Commander Hatake, I can tell you what I saw in the desert. Seeing that Shin Uchiha was as unyielding as ever, Sakamo Hatake knew he wouldn't get anything more out of him. If the third Hokage wanted to investigate further, he could do it himself. Sakamo wasn't about to pick a fight with a war hero. Because in this battle, Shin Uchiha was the undisputed legend. And Sakamo knew that as a commander, even he paled in comparison. Meanwhile, Shin Uchiha's gaze fell upon the members of the Toyama Uchiha faction within the camp. The war with Hidden Sand Village is over. All that remains are skirmishes with Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Clouds Village, and those lurking in the shadows. The real war won't start until the unresolved conflicts of the Third Shinobi War erupt fully. Right now, Hidden Leaf Village stands at its strongest, and few would dare challenge it. It's time for the Uchiha clan to choose a leader. It's time to deal with Toyama, Fugaku, and the rest. As Shin mused over this, a cold determination settled within him. Among the Uchiha, according to his information, there were only two individuals besides himself who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. One was Toyama Uchiha. The other was Shinji's grandfather, a relic of the First Great Ninja War. Both had unlocked the Mangekyo through the carnage of war, experiencing life and death firsthand. Whether this war had led others in the clan to awaken their own Mangekyo remained uncertain. One thing, however, was undeniable: after this war, despite the heavy casualties suffered by the Uchiha clan, the number of newly awakened Sharingan users would surge. And when that happened, the Uchiha would reach their peak. Shin had to seize this moment. A powerful Uchiha clan in his hands would be his greatest asset. The members of Toyama's faction noticed Shin's piercing gaze, and an unbearable weight pressed against their chests. Especially Fugaku Uchiha, his body trembled involuntarily, fear coursing through him as he stared at the monstrous figure that was Shin Uchiha. Toyama Uchiha, seeing his son's disgraceful state, burned with fury. And yet, Their weakness only fueled the admiration of the Uchiha doves, who had already begun to revere Shin Uchiha. Following the strong, that instinct was carved into their very blood. Adding to this, news had just arrived that the Uchiha clan would soon be relocating back to Hidden Leaf Village's center. For the Uchiha, this was more than just a move. It was the erasure of their past humiliation. And the credit for this shift was unanimously given to Shin Uchiha. As for Toyama and Fugaku? Apart from a small number of loyalists, the rest of the clan had already begun to entertain new thoughts. Shin Uchiha no longer paid them any attention. They were dead men walking. Even if Toyama possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, even if he could manifest the Susanoo, he would never surpass the level of an ordinary Kage. And for Shin, such an existence was hardly worth his time. The only figures he truly considered a threat were Madara Uchiha, who still lurked in the shadows, observing the world, and the enigmatic Sage of Six Paths. But even then, Shin did not fear them. His mastery of magnet style and the continuous evolution of his power meant that he was beyond restraint. If Madara Uchiha ever turned his gaze toward him, Shin would ensure that he received an unexpected surprise. In everyone's eyes, Shin Uchiha had always been a prodigious user of lightning style. But there were many secrets he had yet to reveal. As for how to deal with the Sage of Six Paths, Shin had no answer. The only path was to keep growing stronger. At that very moment, Madara Uchiha himself was discussing Shin Uchiha with White Zetsu. In a dark, cavernous hideout, the legendary Uchiha sat cross-legged in silence. His aged face bore a pair of three Tomoe Sharingan, gleaming with a quiet intensity. After transplanting his Rinnegan to Nagato and setting his Eye of the Moon plan into motion, he had White Zetsu procure several Sharingan from fallen Uchiha. After all, no one would question the disappearance of a few Uchiha in wartime. Like a living mass of clay, White Zetsu slithered out from the stone wall, grinning as he addressed his master. Madara-sama, the war between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village has ended. As you predicted, the arrival of Shin Uchiha was the decisive factor. I must say, defeating Hanzo of the Salamander wasn't just luck. Are you considering making him your successor? Madara remained unfazed, his gaze never shifting. Ever since Shin's victory over Hanzo and his meteoric rise to fame, Madara had been watching. 12 years old. And already this close to Hashirama's descendant. Stronger than I was at that age. Has he awakened the Mangekyo? Madara murmured to himself before posing the question aloud. White Zetsu pondered for a moment before shaking his head. No reports indicate that Shin Uchiha has awakened the Mangekyo. As far as we know, he still wields only the three Tomoe Sharingan. Madara remained silent for a while. His lifespan was dwindling, but he still had time to wait. There was no need for haste. At last, he spoke. Continue monitoring Shin Uchiha. Observe his next move. Understood, Madara-sama. Without hesitation, White Zetsu melted into the ground, vanishing into the shadows, heading straight for Hidden Leaf Village's camp. Chapter 86. The war was already over by the time Tsunade arrived at the front line. She had just completed her Sage Mode training and rushed to the battlefield after hearing the news, only to find that Shin Uchiha had already ended the fight. Now, inside the command tent, Tsunade, clad in her ninja uniform that accentuated her curvaceous and powerful figure, sat across from Shin, her expression somewhere between admiration and mild frustration. "You're really fast," Tsunade said, crossing her arms under her ample chest. "I barely finished my Sage Mode training, rushed here, and you've already wrapped things up." Shin Uchiha, lounging with a satisfied smirk, let his palm rest casually on Tsunade's firm thigh as he teased, "Sounds like someone took too long learning it. Don't tell me all that training didn't get you anywhere." Tsunade shot him a look but didn't bother swatting his hand away. By now, she was used to his antics. Her only response was a smirk of her own, tinged with pride. "Tch. It wasn't that long. If we exclude you and my grandfather, I'm the third fastest to master it." She placed a hand on her toned stomach and added, "Though I should probably thank you for that ridiculous intercourse we had. That actually changed my physique." Shin raised an eyebrow. "Oh? You mean the technique that—" "Yes." Tsunade interrupted with an exasperated sigh. "And don't say it out loud." She couldn't deny it, though. His so-called mood cultivation had indeed given her an edge. Who would have thought that his essence had properties beneficial for Sage Mode? If it weren't for the fact that they were still in camp and surrounded by others, Tsunade might have demanded a fresh dose right then and there. It had been more than half a month, after all. Meanwhile, Shin had already relieved himself with Sasha, but Tsunade had been left hanging. Noticing her growing frustration, Shin's fingers moved with practiced ease, tracing small circles against her skin. The warmth of his touch made Tsunade shudder involuntarily. "You do realize I played a big part in you mastering Sage Mode, right?" Shin murmured. "Shouldn't I get some appreciation?" Tsunoda's seductive eyes narrowed slightly as she gently pushed against his chest. Not here. There are people around. She whispered, her voice betraying the heat simmering beneath the surface. Shin leaned in, his smirk widening. The war is over. Mikoto, Kanako, and the others are busy packing up. Just keep your voice down. Without giving her a chance to protest, Shin took control. By the next day, Tsunoda found herself returning to Hidden Leaf Village alongside Shin and his group. Her expression was one of contentment, though her cheeks still held a slight flush. She absent-mindedly patted her stomach with a sigh. Drinking water to fill my stomach isn't the same as eating a full meal, she muttered. Shin chuckled beside her. What does it matter? As long as the nutrition is taken care of, right? She shot him a side-eye glare but didn't argue. Along the journey back, he had also implanted a sage seal into her, something he had been experimenting with. He had even modified its design at will, much to Tsunoda's annoyance. Seriously, can you not adjust the position every damn time? She complained. Sometimes it's in the front, sometimes it's in the back, and why the hell does it glow? Shin put on his best innocent look. Aesthetic appeal. Doesn't it make you feel special? He grinned. It's pink, too. And it lights up when you use chakra. Isn't that amazing? Tsunoda pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaling heavily. She suspected this was just Shin indulging in his own weird tastes. But, in the end, she let it slide. After all, it wasn't visible to anyone else. Only she and Shin knew where the mark was. More importantly, the sage seal had significantly improved her sage mode. Before, she had needed the assistance of Katsu and a few minutes to gather enough natural energy. Now, with the seal, she had reduced that time to a minute. And with Katsu's help, it took only 10 seconds. That surprise alone was enough to make her forget Shin's antics. At least for now. The development of the sage seal also sparked another idea in her mind, perhaps she could enhance the yin seal as well. The technique, originally derived from the Uzumaki clan sealing arts, had been refined through her understanding of medical ninjutsu. Her grandmother, Uzumaki Mido, had provided plenty of guidance in its creation. I should ask Grandma Mido about this when we get back. She mused aloud. Then I'll see what Shin thinks and whether it can be further improved. Meanwhile, back in Hidden Leaf Village, Shin's reputation had skyrocketed. As the hero of the war, his name was being spread far and wide. The Uchiha clan, never once to waste an opportunity, was pushing his achievements into the spotlight. Shin Uchiha-ji, one of the more influential figures in the clan, was already preparing to nominate Shin as the next clan leader. The idea had met resistance, of course. The Toyama Uchiha faction would never allow such a shift in power without a fight. Arguments broke out, but they were abruptly cut short when another pressing matter arose, the Uchiha clan's long-awaited relocation back to the center of Hidden Leaf Village. During this political upheaval, Shin remained uninvolved in clan affairs. Instead, he focused on leveraging his battlefield accomplishments. With Tsunoda's support, he had enough influence to pressure the third Hokage into granting him access to two coveted forbidden techniques, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu. Initially, he had tried to get more, but the old man had been too damn stubborn. If he won't give me more, I'll just take them myself later. Shin muttered to himself, flipping through the scrolls. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu, a space-time ninjutsu developed by the second Hokage, was particularly difficult to master. That was precisely why the third Hokage had relented, very few had ever managed to grasp it. The Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu, while powerful, wasn't considered nearly as dangerous. Allowing Shin to learn it wasn't seen as a major concession. Still, it was exactly what he needed. Multi-Shadow clones suit me perfectly right now, he mused, rolling up the scroll. And Flying Thunder God is a must-have. Even with his Mangekyo Sharingan, the complexity of space-time ninjutsu was daunting. But that only made him more eager to conquer it. Chapter 87 Use chakra to create spatial and temporal markers, then use those markers to teleport instantly. The principle of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu was simple in theory, but in practice, mastering it was an entirely different ordeal. When it came to space-time techniques, Shin Uchiha knew he wasn't particularly talented. His grasp of their mechanics was mediocre at best. After staring at the techniques scroll for an entire day without making any progress, he finally gave up on learning it the conventional way. As expected, this technique requires immense perseverance, comprehension, and a deep affinity for space-time manipulation. Soul reflection, force learning of technique, the 8-pointed star pattern in Shin's Mangekyo Sharingan spun rapidly as the principles of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu replayed over and over in his mind. His chakra and pupil energy drained at an alarming rate. Sage Mode, activate. With his reserves depleting fast, Shin entered Sage Mode, using the massive influx of natural energy to compensate for the consumption of his Mangekyo Sharingan. The moment his vision blurred, the sage seal appeared in the center of his palm. He raised his hand and pressed down. The sage seal burned into the ground, permanently marking it. Ha! I finally learned it. Shin wiped away the blood trickling from his left eye and stood up, his vision still hazy. The strain of using a Mangekyo technique was immense, even for someone with a strong body. While his physical endurance mitigated most of the backlash, his eyesight remained vulnerable. I need to restore my pupil power as soon as possible. While yin and yang release accelerate its recovery, it's still an issue. It's not blindness, but not being able to see clearly is frustrating. His Mangekyo Sharingan had no limits in terms of chakra, but its cap lay in its very foundation. How much water you get depends on how wide the pipe is. The true question is, how do I evolve this into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan? He had a few ideas. Absorbing Rinnegan power was a last resort. The more realistic approach. The Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan. No brothers? Then take someone else's. Currently, only Toyama Uchiha and Shin Uchiha had awakened their Mangekyo Sharingan within the clan. If one pair wasn't enough, then he'd get more. Fugaku Uchiha was a likely candidate as well. If necessary, Shin would push him to awaken his Mangekyo. And then kill him. Let him have a child, and once a child awakened the Sharingan, he'd take those eyes too. If luck was on his side and Fugaku gave birth to Sasuke, then things would be even better. With Indra's chakra in his hands, he'd reach heights no Uchiha had ever dreamed of. He had even tried negotiating with Tsunade. If she were willing, perhaps she'd offer some of Hashirama Senju's cells as a dowry. With all these scattered thoughts in his head, Shin finally snapped back to reality. For now, he needed to test his newly acquired Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He focused on the marker he had placed in his home. Next step, teleportation. Activating the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, Shin's body blurred, and in an instant, he materialized at the marked location. Success. And the chakra consumption is negligible. His version of the technique differed from the standard one. Since he had force-learned it through his Mangekyo Sharingan, certain mechanics had changed. For instance, he didn't need to carve intricate seals for teleportation. His Sage Seal worked as a substitute. This also meant that any living thing marked with the Sage Seal could serve as a teleportation beacon. The most intriguing discovery? The possibility of reverse teleportation, pulling someone or something to his location. Of course, he wasn't reckless enough to test this on a person right away. If something went wrong, it could be disastrous. He glanced at the floor where he had imprinted a Sage Seal. Reverse Flying Thunder God Jutsu, activate. In an instant, a section of the floor vanished from its original spot and appeared before him, as if sliced cleanly by a machine. Shin tossed the floor fragment aside and examined the spot it had come from. A perfectly smooth cut, the Sage Seal still burning on the remaining surface. Good thing I didn't use this on a person right away. If it teleported only a portion of them. A vivid image flashed in his mind, Tsunade suddenly appearing in his room, split in half. Shaking his head, he discarded the thought. He needed to confirm the technique's full properties first. Capturing several animals, he ran a series of tests. The results. Unlike his initial fears, his reverse Flying Thunder God Jutsu teleported living beings intact. The reason? His Sage Seal merged with the target's chakra network, treating them as extensions of the seal itself. Once satisfied with his findings, he used wood style to restore the damaged floor. Then, his thoughts took a questionable turn. Mikoto and Kanako are cooking in the kitchen. Tsunade? Let's not disturb her yet. Even if she teleports here, she won't be able to do much in front of them. As for Sasha, she's too busy stabilizing Rorin. After some deliberation, he set his sights on two individuals, Konan and Kushina. They were currently at Uzumaki Mido's residence. He wasn't sure what they were up to, but they were together. It's almost dinner time, and Konan's still not back? I suppose I should help her out. Shin's lips curled into an amused smirk. He could already picture the look of shock on her face. This was going to be fun. Fixing his chakra signature on her location, he put his hands together. Reverse Flying Thunder God, activate. Swish. A flash of white. A moment later, a confused Konan materialized before him, surrounded by wisps of steam. Her damp purple hair clung to her shoulders. Beads of water slid down her collarbone, tracing their way over her pale, delicate skin. Shin blinked. Konan, now realizing what had just happened, widened her eyes. "Be brother?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. She remembered clearly, just moments ago, she had been in the bath with Kushina. Silence. The droplets of water falling from her body seemed to echo in the room. She pressed her thighs together, arms wrapping around her chest in a feeble attempt to cover herself. Unfortunately, this only made her look even more vulnerable. Shin, expression unreadable, simply tilted his head. Conan's face turned crimson. Her lips parted slightly, as if to say something. Perhaps, in hindsight, teleporting someone straight out of the bath wasn't the best idea. But at least he had confirmed the technique worked.